Chapter 455. After a few days of tossing and turning, the red-feathered crow egg quieted down. Maybe the yang qi or the fire spiritual power was not enough. Wang Daoyuan ordered his avatar to continue refining the essence of the fiery sunstone to nourish the red-feathered crow egg. He himself refined the essence of the red sun true fire and injected it into the egg. Things like spiritual fire grew faster. As long as there was enough spiritual qi, the lost essence would quickly recover. Losing a little red sun true fire essence was nothing. After 3 days, another 100 pounds of fiery sunstone was consumed. The essence of the red sun true fire was also lost by 30%. The red-feathered crow egg moved again. The mysterious patterns on the eggshell flashed with golden light. After another half a day, a small crack appeared on the eggshell. It was about to break. Wang Daoyuan immediately moved the red-feathered crow egg out of the space of the spirit pearl. After the birds hatched, the first thing they saw was to get close to them. The red-feathered crow also had the bloodline of the golden crow. Its growth space was great and its future was limitless. Although it had already recognized a master, if he did not cultivate feelings, it was likely to be disobedient in the future. As soon as the red-feathered crow egg came out of the space of the spirit pearl, a strong fire attribute spiritual power mixed with pure yang qi spread in the cave. Fortunately, Wang Daoyuan had already opened the restriction in the cave. The fire spiritual power and pure yang qi would not leak out. Otherwise, it would definitely cause a big commotion. As time went by, more and more cracks appeared on the eggshell. After an hour, a small hole appeared on the eggshell. A small golden mouth emerged from the hole. After another hour, the eggshell was pecked half open. The red-feathered crow chick drilled out of the eggshell. This chick was about the size of a chick. It had sparse black fluff on its body. There was an obvious fire attribute spiritual power fluctuation on its body. There was also a strong pure yang qi. Although it was a little difficult to stand up, the spiritual power fluctuation showed that it was a second-level low-grade spiritual bird. Wang Daoyuan stretched out his finger. The little red-feathered crow gently pecked a few times, then opened its mouth to ask him for food. He really did not know what the red-feathered crow liked to eat. There was no record in the inheritance of the 1,000 Spirit sect. The inheritance of the 100 Spirits Supreme was not in his hands. Generally, birds like to eat insects, but the only insect in the space of the spiritual pearl was the soul-chasing bee. Wang Daoyuan's spiritual sense entered the space of the spiritual pearl. He took out a soul-chasing bee larva from the beehive and handed it to the nestling's mouth. It didn't even look at it. Wang Daoyuan then took out spirit grains, rabbit meat, and other things, but it didn't even look at them. Finally, he took out a pine nut from the red scale pine, crushed it, and placed it next to the chick's mouth. This time, it ate some. It seemed like this little fella was only interested in fire attribute phase. He kept the fledgling into the spiritual pearl space and handed it over to his doppelganger Tu Yuming to take care of. The eggshell was not an ordinary item, so he carefully put it away. Perhaps it would be useful in the future. The fledgling entered the space of the spiritual pearl, and as soon as it had the ability to move, it ran towards the scarlet yang real fire. It stood right in the middle of the flames and was not hurt at all. On the contrary, it looked very intoxicated. Wang Daoyuan simply ignored it. After cleaning up the fire spiritual power and pure yang qi in the cave, he walked out of the cave. There was nothing he urgently needed in the Mingsha plain, so it was time to leave. After bidding farewell to He Yuanqing, he went to the Noal's shop. There were many fierce beasts roaming around the edge of the southern wasteland. If he continued to go deeper, there would be more fierce beasts and a large number of demonic cultivators. The danger would only be greater, so it was better to ask for information first. When he arrived at the Noal's shop, Yuanqing quickly greeted, "Dao Yu Zhou, are you here to sell or buy information?" Wang Daoyuan replied, "Naturally, I'm here to buy information. What information can I sell?" Yuanqing smiled and said, "Dao Yu Zhou is too polite. You brought the flying sand bandits and killed the wild sand wanderer. The wild sand wanderer's son, Feng Tianyi, sacrificed his life rather than his wealth. He even brought a few loyal followers to defend his lair in the southern part of the Mingsha Ridge. This is a big matter related to the situation of the entire Mingxia plain. This information is worth a lot of spirit stones. In the past few days, there have been several people who have come to me to inquire about the situation. They are very generous. Unfortunately, I don't have any friendship with the Flying Sand Bandits, so I don't dare to ask them. Several big business deals have been delayed, and I'm about to die from worry. As long as you tell me the cause and effect of this matter, I'll tell you whatever information you want to know today, and I won't take a single cent. Wang Daoyuan pondered for a moment, and felt that it wasn't a big deal. He could just hide the key information, and it wouldn't reveal any of his secrets. He smiled and said, "There's no problem in telling you this information. It's just that you have to fulfill your promise. If you don't tell me what information I ask, then don't blame me for being impolite." Yuan Chen patted his chest and guaranteed, "As long as I know, Dao, you can ask as much as you want." Wang Daoyuan continued, "Actually, it's not a big deal. It's just that when I was hunting in the Mingxia Ridge, I took down a third-rank middle-grade sand-chasing harrier. Before I could get it, that grandson Feng Tianyi rushed out and snatched the sand-chasing harrier's corpse. I chased after him for a while, and the wild sand wanderer came out to protect him. I warned him to return it to me, or else I would exterminate the wild sand bandits. But the wild sand wanderer wanted to use the sand-chasing harrier's corpse to refine an artifact to deal with the flying sand wanderer, so no matter what I said, he wasn't willing to return it. I wasn't a match for the father and son, so I could only reveal the information to the flying sand wanderer and agree to cooperate with the flying sand bandits to take care of the wild sand bandits. The actual operation was that the wild sand wanderer and I led several late-stage Zifu disciples to infiltrate the mountain shade oasis. After I killed a savage beast, I took advantage of the time when the wild sand bandits' garrison came to ask for benefits to ambush and kill him, and then attacked the wild sand bandits' garrison. The wild sand wanderer led a late-stage Zifu disciple, a middle-stage Zifu disciple, and a flying warship to rescue him. Afterwards, they were ambushed by me and the flying sand bandits. The middle-stage Zifu disciple was killed by me, and the late-stage Zifu disciple surrendered. As for the wild sand wanderer, he was killed by me and the flying sand wanderer. The other details are related to my own secrets, so you don't need to ask about them. Yuan Chen still wanted to ask about some more details, but since Wang Daoyuan had already said so, he didn't dare to ask any more questions. Which cultivator didn't have some secrets? Some secrets, even father and son and wife couldn't tell each other. Asking about other people's secrets was a big taboo in the Xiaoxin world. Seeing that he didn't ask any more, Wang Daoyuan said with a smile, "Now it's my turn to ask. In the southern wasteland, there's a mountain range that was transformed from a demon's body. Which one is it?" He asked this question because he wanted to know the specific situation of the true devil blood lotus, so that he wouldn't be cheated by the flying sand wanderer. Yuan Chen replied, "There are too many of these mountains in the southern wasteland. Legend has it that the southern wasteland was the battlefield of the ancient demons' invasion. Now that the southern wasteland is like this, it's because a large number of demons were buried here, causing the spiritual energy to change greatly, and it's no longer suitable for human cultivators to live in. Legend has it that there are more than 10 mountains that were transformed from the bodies of high-level demons. For example, the Blood Demon Ridge south of Mingxia Plain, and the Buried Demon Mountains south of the Blood Demon Ridge. Legend has it that they were all transformed from the bodies of demons." It seemed that he couldn't get any definite information, so Wang Daoyuan gave up asking about the true devil blood lotus. He mainly wanted to ask about the metal attribute rank 4 spirit veins, so he asked, "Daoyu, do you know the distribution of rank 4 spirit veins in the southern wasteland? I came to the southern wasteland to look for some rare spirit objects. It's hard to find them without knowing the attributes of spirit veins." Yuan Chen smiled awkwardly. "Dao, you're really making things difficult for me. The spiritual energy in the southern wasteland is violent, and without reaching the golden core realm, it's impossible to go too deep. Most of the information I have is in the vicinity of Mingxia Plain. Since Daoyu wants to know, I'll tell you what I know. To the east of Mingxia Plain, there's a fire attribute rank 4 spirit vein, and to the west, there's a metal attribute rank 3 spirit vein. In the Blood Demon Ridge south of Mingxia Plain, There are two rank 4 spirit veins crossing each other. They are the metal attribute rank 4 spirit vein extending from the north to the south, and the metal attribute rank 4 spirit vein extending from the east to the west. Further south, there's the buried demon mountain, and there's a water attribute rank 4 spirit vein. I don't know anything else, so Daoyu, don't make things difficult for me. Chapter 456. After hearing Yuan Chen's words, Wang Daoyuan fell into deep thought. If he wanted to find a metal attribute spirit fire, he would naturally look for it near a high-grade metal attribute spirit vein. The Blood Demon Ridge had a 4th-grade metal attribute spirit vein, so it was naturally an excellent target. After a while, he said, "Tell me about the situation in the Blood Demon Ridge." Yuan Chen continued, "The spirit qi in the south of Mingsha Plain is even more violent. Cultivators below the Golden Core realm can't withstand the invasion of the spirit qi, so very few righteous cultivators go to the Blood Demon Ridge. Once demonic cultivators enter the Mingsha Plain, they will be dealt with. The news on both sides is not very good, so I only know the general information. I don't know the details." The mountaintops of the Blood Demon Ridge were extremely messy. They were made up of dozens of big and small mountain ranges that were squeezed together. The longest from east to west is 40 to 50,000 miles, and the widest from north to south is more than 10,000 miles. Legend has it that when the demonic race invaded in ancient times, an army of blood fiends was wiped out by our ancestors in this area. At that time, the war was urgent and there was no time to deal with these demonic corpses. Later, these corpses turned into the Blood Demon Ridge. It's hard to say whether the legend is true or false, but the Blood Demon Ridge is indeed suitable for demonic cultivators to cultivate. It's said that there are many Golden Core demonic cultivators in the Blood Demon Ridge, but they don't dare to show themselves. There are also many fierce beasts in the Blood Demon Ridge, including 4th-grade fierce beasts. Even the Golden Core cultivators of the Divine Weapon Pavilion don't dare to enter the Blood Demon Ridge. If Daoyu wants to explore the Blood Demon Ridge, it's best to explore the northern border. If you encounter danger, you will have a chance to escape. Once you enter the Blood Demon Ridge, your life and death will depend on the will of the heavens. Wang Daoyuan denied, "I'm just asking. I don't want to go to the Blood Demon Ridge. By the way, I heard that the 4 top forces were left behind in ancient times to guard the 4 directions. I don't know if it's true." The know-it-all smiled and said, "This is not a secret. The 4 top forces indeed guard the 4 directions and protect the human race. The Wind Snow Palace guards the Arctic Ice Plains, the Archaic Arcanum Sect guards the West Sea, and the Divine Weapon Pavilion and Tai Sword Sect guards the Southern Wasteland. Back then, there was a big force called the Valley of Beasts guarding the Sky Mountain Range. It was just that several tens of thousands of years ago, it was exterminated by the demonic beasts of the Heavenly/Mountain Range. Only some rumors were left behind. Other than the 4 top forces, the other forces did not know the specific situation in the Valley of Beasts. I only heard some rumors when I was looking for information. The Valley of Beasts mainly cultivated the way of taming beasts. After its destruction, its inheritance was scattered everywhere. Most of the existing beast-taming sects had received incomplete inheritances from the Valley of Beasts. Unfortunately, none of these sects were able to achieve great things. There is no one guarding the east, so the Heavenly/Mountain Range often causes major incidents. Taking advantage of the free treatment given to him by Yuan Chen, Wang Daoyuan tried to fish for more information, including the secrets of the various countries and major powers. Yuan Chen was worthy of being called a know-it-all. Although he didn't know those very confidential matters, he knew quite a lot about the scandals of the various major powers. After talking with Yuan Chen for half a day, he left the shop. After learning the general situation of the Bloody Demon Ridge, Wang Daoyuan left the Singing Sand Market and headed south. The Singing Sand Plain was more than 40,000 kilometers wide from north to south. As he flew in the air on his sword, his eyes were filled with a desolate yellow color. Occasionally, there would be a few oases that flashed past. When he reached the southern border of the Singing Sand Plain, green mountains and clear waters finally appeared in front of him. However, The spiritual power here was also extremely violent. Even with the strength of Wang Daoyuan's physical body, he still felt pain in his meridians as if they were being cut by knives. When he used his spiritual power to suppress it, the pain was obviously reduced. However, if he continued like this, his spiritual power would continue to be consumed. Ordinary cultivators could not bear it at all. Therefore, righteous Dao cultivators rarely came here. As he walked forward, the human cultivators he encountered were basically demonic Dao cultivators. Righteous Dao cultivators and demonic Dao cultivators were irreconcilable. Encountering demonic Dao cultivators was more dangerous than encountering ferocious beasts. Fortunately, Wang Daoyuan had Bai Sheng, a demonic Dao cultivator clone. Bai Sheng walked the path of the blood demon. The blood demon absorbed the blood essence of human cultivators or demonic beasts to cultivate and focused on strengthening the physical body. In fact, Wang Daoyuan was very similar to a demonic Dao cultivator of the blood demon Dao. His physical strength was stronger, and his blood chi fluctuations were much stronger than ordinary cultivators. Moreover, there were also many cultivators with 5 spirit veins in the blood demon Dao. Because demonic Dao cultivators did not pay attention to spirit veins, the ratio of demonic Dao cultivators with 4 or 5 spirit veins far exceeded that of righteous Dao cultivators. Demonic Dao cultivators with 5 spirit veins were more suited for body tempering. There were even more demonic Dao cultivators with 5 spirit veins. Compared to true demonic Dao cultivators, Wang Daoyuan's blood chi and physical body were still much weaker. However, this could be compensated for. There was a type of Tier 2 medicinal pill called the boiling blood pill. After Foundation establishment cultivators consumed it, their physical strength would increase for a short period of time. This medicinal pill was not very useful for Zifu realm cultivators, but it could significantly strengthen their blood chi fluctuations. It could be refined with the blood essence of demonic beasts. Coincidentally, Tu Yoming's clone also knew how to refine pills, so he refined some boiling blood pills. There was no problem in using magical powers. His clone, Bai Sheng, had a Tier 3 demonic Dao artifact forging legacy. He killed 2 ferocious beasts and used their bones to refine a few Tier 3 demonic Dao artifacts. Demonic Dao cultivators did not pay much attention to magical powers. They would learn whatever was powerful. It was not rare for demonic Dao cultivators to learn sword magical powers. Not long after he entered the Blood Demon Ridge, he encountered a battle of magical powers. Dozens of miles ahead, in a small mountain that was several hundred feet tall, the sound of magical powers colliding could be heard constantly. After entering within 15 miles of the small mountain, he used his divine sense to investigate the situation. He saw 5 middle-stage Zifu realm demonic Dao cultivators surrounding and attacking a middle-stage Zifu realm righteous Dao cultivator. This righteous Dao cultivator was also a lightning-type sword cultivator. After careful observation, he discovered that this sword cultivator was someone familiar. It was the disciple of the Tai sword sect's Daoist profound thunder, Kuei-jian. To be able to meet an old acquaintance here, it was really like meeting an old friend in a foreign land. His current situation was not good. Under the siege of 5 demonic Dao cultivators, he almost did not even have the strength to retaliate. His body was covered in wounds, and his entire body was covered in blood. If not for the fact that Wang Daoyuan saw the long sword in his hand, he would not have recognized him. After all, Kuei-jian was an old acquaintance. During the exploration of true Monarch 100 Spirits estate, Kuei-jian had spoken up for him many times. If he could help, he would help. Wang Daoyuan took out the white tiger blade and used the sword's shadow godlight technique. He urged the firestorm kite under his feet to attack the small mountain in front of him. Sensing that someone was coming, Kuei-jian and the 5 demonic Dao cultivators all raised their guard. When Kuei-jian saw the white tiger blade, he knew that it was Wang Daoyuan. His eyes revealed a look of excitement. The 5 demonic Dao cultivators thought that he had come to steal their business. After all, Wang Daoyuan's current blood energy was surging, and he looked very similar to a demonic Dao cultivator. An elderly demonic Dao cultivator clasped his hands and said, "Daoyu has come late. This cultivator belongs to the 5 of us." Please, Daoyu, find another target and do not interfere. Wang Daoyuan laughed. Since Daoyu does not welcome you, then I will not interfere in your business. Hearing these words, the demonic Dao cultivators relaxed slightly. Wang Daoyuan turned around and was about to go around the small mountain. When he was only 4 to 5 miles away from the demonic Dao cultivators, the white tiger blade in his hand flew out, bringing along 10 sword shadows as it charged towards the elderly demonic Dao cultivator. After Kuei Jian recognized that it was Wang Daoyuan, he had been preparing to launch a sneak attack. At this time, the 5 people's attention was drawn away by Wang Daoyuan's attack. He naturally would not let go of the opportunity. Lightning flickered on the life-bound flying sword as it attacked a muscular middle-aged demonic Dao cultivator. The 2 demonic Dao cultivators also took out magic artifacts to block. However, Wang Daoyuan's white tiger blade was venerable fiend's inheritance, so its power was greatly increased against demonic Dao cultivators. Kuei Jian was a lightning attribute cultivator, specialized in restraining demonic Dao cultivators, heretical cultivators, and the like. The two's fighting strength also far exceeded those of the same level. The elderly demonic Dao cultivator's life-bound magic artifact was broken by Wang Daoyuan, and his entire body was cut in half at the waist. Kuei Jian's lightning attribute attack was too destructive, turning the muscular middle-aged demonic Dao cultivator into charcoal. 2 of his companions died instantly, and the remaining 3 demonic Dao cultivators were utterly terrified. They clearly had the advantage in numbers, but they did not dare to continue fighting. They raised their magic artifacts and wanted to escape. Chapter 457. Wang Daoyuan urged the flaming wind kite to continue the chase, while asking Kuei Jian, "Daoyu, can you still fight?" Kuei Jian didn't say anything, only nodding. Wang Daoyuan laughed, "1 for you, 2 for me. Don't let them escape." Saying this, he used the Earth Divine Lightning to attack the opponent. His Earth Divine Lightning could only be cultivated to the early Zifu level, and its power was somewhat lacking. However, it was perfect for dealing with this group of demonic cultivators. Zifu cultivators could use their divine sense to change the direction of their spells. Unless their speed was faster than their opponent's spells, it was useless to dodge. A demonic cultivator using a bone will gave up on dodging. While fleeing, he used his magic weapon to take on the Earth Divine Lightning. After 3 rounds of Earth Divine Lightning, his bone wheel was shattered, and the 4th hit his head, instantly turning his body into pieces. Then, under the corrosion of Earth-type spiritual energy, he turned into ashes. Under Wang Daoyuan's deliberate control, his storage bag was undamaged. He couldn't bear to use the Earth Divine Lightning on the 2nd demonic cultivator. This person used a bone sword, which he could snatch and use as his own magic weapon. Controlling 10 sword shadows to surround him, the demonic cultivator used the bone sword to attack the sword shadows. Wang Daoyuan controlled the sword shadows to dodge. His magic weapon couldn't be damaged. The 10 sword shadows were in different positions. The moment he used the bone sword to attack, 3 sword shadows attacked him from behind. His protective spiritual energy couldn't withstand a single blow from the sword shadows. A sword shadow from the side cut off the arm holding the sword. Wang Daoyuan used his divine sense to interfere with his control of the bone sword. Then, the 10 sword shadows attacked together, cutting this person into dozens of pieces in an instant. These 3 people had lost their courage. They were like sheep that only knew how to flee. They didn't even have the courage to resist. Killing them was as easy as flipping his hand. On the other side, Kuei Jian also cut the last demonic cultivator in half. Wang Daoyuan collected the 3 demonic cultivators' storage bags and the bone sword. He asked Kuei Jian, "Why did you come to Mount Blood Demon?" Kuei Jian answered, "I often travel in the southern wasteland and have been at the border for more than 10 years. There aren't any demonic cultivators in the borderlands, and the ferocious beasts are too weak, so there's no need for me to train. That's why I came here." Not long after he arrived at the Blood Demon Ridge, he was targeted by these 5 fellows. These fiendish cultivators really didn't care about the rules. They attacked from all sides. This time, it's all thanks to Daoyu's help. Otherwise, I would have to use the method left behind by Master. Wang Daoyuan looked at Daoyu's undisguised swordsmanship and said with a smile, Daoyu dared to enter the bloody demon ridge, so it's not surprising that you were besieged. Didn't you think of disguising yourself? The Kuei sword said unconcernedly, I've traveled a lot, and I've always been like this. What's there to pretend about? Wang Daoyuan didn't say anything else. This guy was a bit like his second brother, a complete hothead. Second brother also knew how to bow to reality because of his family. This guy was a direct disciple of the Tai sword sect. Who could make him bow his head? Wang Daoyuan sighed, saying, Daoyu, Kuei, you aren't weak. A middle Zifu disciple can defeat an ordinary late Zifu disciple. However, this is the territory of fiendish cultivators. Although the Tai sword sect is powerful, it'll be hard for them to wipe out the blood demon ridge. These fiendish cultivators won't fear your status. As soon as you show your face, you'll definitely be besieged. As I see it, you should leave the blood demon ridge as soon as possible. Kuei Jian pondered for a moment, then asked, What about you? Wang Daoyuan took the bone sword into his hands, then laughed. Do you think I'm a fiendish cultivator or a righteous cultivator? Kuei Jian sighed, saying, Penta spirit veins cultivators truly do have many tricks up their sleeves. Fine, I'll listen to your advice and leave Mount Blood Demon. Wang Daoyuan hurriedly urged, Wait a moment. With your injuries, you'll be surrounded by beasts no matter where you go. He used the Azure Dragon Pearl to heal Kuei Jian's injuries. Kuei Jian's injuries weren't light, but they were all external wounds. The Azure Dragon Pearl's healing effects were even better. Soon, his injuries were mostly healed. Wang Daoyuan laughed, Help me tell Reverend Dark Thunder that I saved you once, and that I've repaid the favor I owed him. Kuei Jian didn't agree. Master said that you're a fat sheep. The value of your favor is very high. In the future, I'll be able to rip you off. Let's talk about our own matters. This time, I owe you a favor, and it has nothing to do with Master. After speaking, he flew off on his sword. Wang Daoyuan sighed, sighing. Even fiendish sword cultivators were so black-hearted. True gentlemen like himself were becoming fewer and fewer. Now that the bone sword in his hand had recognized him as its master, he was no different from a fiendish cultivator. Unfortunately, Kuei Jian had been here before, and hadn't been able to keep him alive to refine into a clone. Now, he had to find a new target, and see which fiendish cultivator would be so lucky. A great battle had just broken out on this mountain. Soon, it would attract ferocious beasts and fiendish cultivators who wanted to take advantage of the situation. Wang Daoyuan suppressed his cultivation to the early stage of the Zifu realm. Putting on the spirit-restricting silk cloak, he flew towards the west on his bone sword. To find clues about the metal attribute spiritual fire, he had to first find a place to stay. Releasing the soul-chasing bees, he searched along the northern edge of the Blood Devil Ridge. After these soul-chasing bees came out of the Spirit Pearl space, they seemed abnormally excited, running around in all directions. 15 minutes later, the soul-chasing bees returned and found a few abodes where cultivators lived. Wang Daoyuan let the soul-chasing bees lead the way, heading towards an abode with water spiritual chi fluctuations. There was a large metal attribute spiritual vein here, but he didn't have a metal attribute spiritual fire and couldn't turn the violent metal attribute spiritual chi gentle. Therefore, he still had to find a place with other attributes of spiritual chi to stay. After arriving at the place, the soul-chasing bees leading the way suddenly died. He used his divine sense to investigate the soul-chasing bees' corpses and found that it was caused by severe internal injuries. It seemed that the soul-chasing bees couldn't withstand the violent spiritual chi here either. He couldn't casually send them out in the future. The abode in front of him was not bad, and the position of the cave entrance was well hidden. Because of the presence of water spiritual chi, the vegetation here was quite lush. The entrance of the abode was hidden in the vegetation, and with a divine sense concealing formation, it would completely not attract the attention of passing cultivators and ferocious beasts. Wang Daoyuan decided that this would be the place where he would stay in the future. As for the early-stage Zifu realm demonic cultivator inside, he didn't take him seriously at all. There was a low-grade Tier 3 defensive formation at the entrance of the abode, But Wang Daoyuan didn't take it seriously. He directly used the bone sword in his hand to execute the sword shadow divine light technique, slashing at the defensive light barrier. After one attack, the demonic cultivator inside couldn't sit still anymore and shouted, "This abode is already occupied. Daoyu, don't you know the rules?" Wang Daoyuan didn't bother to pay attention to him. It was because there was someone that he came here. He continued to attack the defensive light barrier, and the demonic cultivator inside was furious. He opened a hole in the defensive light barrier and said, "Come in if you have the guts." Wang Daoyuan was wearing the blood fire purple gold armor. Normal Zifu realm cultivators couldn't threaten him at all. This guy wasn't a bandit leader like the flying sand cultivator, who had many years of savings. The probability of a normal loose cultivator having a talisman treasure was next to zero. Protecting the 10 sword shadows by his side, he walked into the abode. There was a mid-grade tier 3 spirit spring inside the abode, and the amount of water wasn't small. The demonic cultivator inside used a spell, and a cold air swept past the spring, bringing up a large amount of water. The water was frozen into ice swords by the cold air, flying towards Wang Daoyuan. He had 10 sword shadows protecting him. Before the ice swords could even get close, they were all cut into ice shards. Wang Daoyuan became interested. This was an ice-type demonic cultivator. He used the Kirin seal to suppress him. His cultivation was higher, and the Kirin seal was able to suppress demonic cultivators. The early-stage Zifu realm demonic cultivator was completely unable to resist the suppressive power of the Kirin seal. Once the Kirin seal was used, he couldn't even use 30% of his strength. Soon, he was pressed to the ground by the Kirin seal, unable to move. Wang Daoyuan used the soul-severing blade to attack his Zifu. This guy didn't have a Zifu anomaly, so his Zifu was instantly broken. His soul resisted, but it was still heavily injured. Wang Daoyuan used the soul-severing blade, slashing at the forehead of his soul. Then, he sent it into his soul fragment and stored it in the space of the soul pearl. Within the space of the soul pearl, Bai Sheng's clone was inspecting the 4 storage bags he had obtained today. He had obtained quite a number of Tier 3 refining materials and spirit medicines. Wang Daoyuan couldn't help but sigh. It was really easy to make money without any capital. No wonder there were so many treasure-seeking cultivators. Chapter 458. In the following days, Wang Daoyuan did not stay idle. Since he had occupied a new cave, he had to make some arrangements. The array left behind by the demonic cultivator was called the Jade Water Golden Edge Array. It was good for both offense and defense, so Wang Daoyuan continued to use it. In addition to the defensive array, there was also a spirit sealing array to block divine sense. There was also a concealment array at the door. If one did not check carefully, they would not be able to discover that there was a cave here. The most important thing was the spirit isolation array. After all, he was not a demonic cultivator. Staying in this violent spirit energy made him uncomfortable. He also knew how to soften the violent spirit energy. However, in this place where the spirit energy was extremely violent, it needed at least a Tier 4 array to be effective. He was only a Tier 3 array master and did not have the ability to set up a Tier 4 array. However, the spirit isolation array was easier to set up as it could isolate all external spirit energy. Low-grade Tier 3 array formations could isolate the invasion of external spirit chi. As for the cultivation needs, he had plenty of resources. He had a disk array that could isolate the probing of divine sense. The array disk for the spirit isolation array still needed to be refined temporarily. However, the spirit isolation array was a relatively simple array and did not take much effort. In addition, the new ice attribute demonic cultivator was also a Tier 3 array master. He did not need to do anything to set up the array. This demonic cultivator's clone was called Cui Ming. In his early years, he was also a rogue cultivator who lived at the edge of the southern wasteland. Although he had an ice spirit root, his talent was not very good. The highest ice spirit root was only 4 inches. A rogue cultivator with such talent could not reach foundation establishment without any fortuitous encounters. By chance, he received a relatively inferior demonic cultivator inheritance and walked the path of the blood demon. Demonic cultivators of the blood demon lineage were not afraid of qi and blood exhaustion. Cui Ming also succeeded in foundation establishment when he was nearly 100 years old. At the edge of the southern wasteland, demonic cultivators were like rats crossing the street. He was not willing to stay at the edge of the southern wasteland, so he went deep into the southern wasteland and came to the Blood Demon Mountain area. From Cui Ming's memory, he knew that the central area of the Blood Demon Mountain was the intersection of the metal attribute spirit vein and the non-attribute spirit vein. There was an underground city called Blood Demon City. There might be a golden core demonic cultivator in the city. It was said that the Blood Demon City was protected by a Tier 5 formation. Even the Golden Core cultivators of the Divine Weapon Pavilion and the Tai Sword sect did not dare to touch the Blood Demon City. This Blood Demon City was not a simple isolated city, but a complex underground world. There were spirit fields, places to raise ferocious beasts, as well as various mines and caves. Wang Daoyuan reckoned that it was impossible for such a large underground world to be hidden from the Divine Weapon Pavilion and the Tai Sword sect. With the strength of the two sects, it would not be difficult to flatten this place. It wasn't that they couldn't destroy it, but that they didn't want to. There were three forces in the southern wasteland. They were the remnants of the devil race, the devil cultivators, and the ferocious beasts. Demons and beasts had no possibility of compromising with humans. However, demonic cultivators were different. They were just humans with different cultivation paths. This was especially true for the Blood Demon clan. Their cultivation method required them to kill ferocious beasts. They didn't have much conflict with the human race and were considered an important force in suppressing the southern wasteland. If it weren't for the fact that these guys had invaded the borders of the southern wasteland as soon as they got stronger, they could be considered as allies of the two sections. If Wang Daoyuan himself was the decision-maker of the two sects, he would also keep the Blood Demon clan and maintain the stability of the southern wasteland. The Blood Demon City was the intersection of two large rank 4 spirit veins. The spirit eyes of the two spirit veins were near the Blood Demon City. The spirit eye of a spirit vein was the most likely place to give birth to a high-grade spirit object. If there really was a metal attribute spirit fire in the Blood Demon Ridge, the greatest possibility would be here. Wang Daoyuan really needed to make a trip to the Blood Demon City. However, it wasn't easy to sneak into the Blood Demon City. Every cultivator who entered the Blood Demon City had to be strictly inspected. Wang Daoyuan's current method of passing off fish eyes as pearls would definitely be exposed once it was strictly inspected. Moreover, there might be golden core demonic cultivators in the Blood Demon City. If he wanted to sneak in, he had to at least have the means to hide from the Purple Mansion realm demonic cultivators and make the Golden Core demonic cultivators not notice him. With his current physical strength, he was directly exposed to the violent spirit qi. He also needed to use spirit energy to resist the corrosion of the spirit qi or use the spirit isolating jade pendant. Even if he wore the god restriction cloak, he couldn't completely hide from demonic cultivators of the same level at close range. If he wanted to withstand the violent spirit qi, he could only strengthen his physical body. However, refining the body wasn't something that could be done overnight. Although Wang Daoyuan's physical body was strong, the blood qi was strong. But to reach the level of ignoring the violent spirit qi in the Blood Demon Ridge, it would take at least 20 to 30 years. Even if he had sufficient resources to support it, it would take more than 10 years. As for body refining techniques, he had ready-made ones in his hands. The 5-spirit immortal art was a kind of brilliant body refining technique. After condensing 5 spirit power seeds, the 5 elements would nourish the 5 internal organs, and the physical strength would rapidly increase. This was a body refining from the inside out. With the strength of the internal organs and blood qi as the foundation, it drove the muscles and bones to become stronger. Just looking at the physical situation, he was no different from an ordinary demonic cultivator. To see whether he was a demonic cultivator or not, a Golden Core expert would have to personally examine him or use thunder techniques to see the effect of the attack. Although he hadn't obtained the metal attribute spirit fire, It wasn't necessary for him to condense the metal attribute spirit power seeds. The current 4 spirit power seeds were condensed by extracting the essence of the spirit fire. They weren't fused with the spirit fire. Extracting the essence of some metal attribute phase to condense the metal attribute spirit power seeds wasn't much different from other spirit power seeds. In the future, when he found the metal attribute spirit fire, he could destroy the metal attribute spirit power seeds and condense them again. Wang Daoyuan's cultivation had reached the mid-stage of the Purple Mansion realm, and he could condense the 5th spirit power seed. In terms of metal attribute phase, he could choose the Heaven Ferocious Metal or Grand Unity Essence Gold. Wang Daoyuan preferred the Heaven Ferocious Metal. If he used the Heaven Ferocious Metal to condense the spirit power seeds, the metal attribute spirit power would definitely have some murderous aura. This was very similar to the demonic cultivators of the blood demon lineage. They hunted ferocious beasts and extracted their blood essence to aid their cultivation. How could they not have some murderous aura? Who would suspect that a cultivator with a strong physical body, vigorous blood chi, evil dharma artifacts, and murderous aura wasn't a demonic cultivator of the blood demon lineage? After Cui Ming's clone finished refining the spirit isolation array, Wang Daoyuan let him out of the spiritual pearls space and had him set up the spirit isolation array and the spirit isolation array in the cave abode. After setting up the array, Wang Daoyuan took out a fist-sized piece of Heaven Ferocious Metal from the spiritual pearls space. It wasn't easy to find this item in the state of Zhao, but it wasn't rare in the Blood Demon Ridge. The piece of Heaven Ferocious Metal in his hand was snatched from a demonic cultivator. The method of condensing the spirit power seeds and extracting the essence of phase was very similar to refining artifacts. However, it had a higher requirement of purity. After all, it had to be fused into the body. If there were too many impurities, it could cause the metal attribute spirit power to become impure and even damage the dantian. This was also a huge advantage of condensing the spirit power seeds with the spiritual fire. The essence of the spiritual fire was definitely pure enough. Lin Yun took out a wisp of scarlet yang primordial fire from the spiritual pearls space and roasted the piece of Heaven Ferocious Metal. After the Heaven Ferocious Metal was melted, the special spirit power within was extracted. A few days later, a ball of liquid formed by the perfect fusion of pure metal attribute spirit power and evil chi was obtained. As for the piece of Heaven Ferocious Metal, it had become a level 1 metal attribute spirit material and carried a faint evil chi and metal attribute spirit power. After absorbing the essence of the Heaven Ferocious Metal into his dantian, he began to work on condensing the metal attribute spirit power seeds. 3 days later, a silver seed the size of a soybean appeared in his dantian. At this time, the wood, earth, and water seeds were already the size of a child's fist. The fire attribute spirit power seed that had been condensed not long ago was also the size of a longan. Although the silver seed was a little small, when he worked on it, it automatically absorbed the metal attribute spirit power and underwent a second refinement, constantly strengthening itself. The second refinement produced pure metal attribute spirit power that also carried a lot of evil chi. After the 5 elemental spirit power seeds were gathered, not only would they undergo a second refinement, they would also actively absorb the spirit power that entered his dantian and directly refine it. It was no wonder that after the 5 elemental spirit power seeds were gathered, the cultivation speed would increase significantly. It was like having a small spirit root. Chapter 459. The violent spirit energy in the southern wasteland was mainly affected by the decimating heaven abyss. Under the influence of the violent spirit energy, the spirit veins in the southern wasteland also had some problems, and the spirit energy produced was also somewhat violent. This situation was more serious the further south one went. Just like the spirit energy produced by the spirit veins in Mingsha Plain, Wang Daoyuan could directly use it for cultivation, just that it was somewhat uncomfortable. But using the spirit energy in the Blood Demon Ridge directly for cultivation would harm the meridians. Although the cave was already protected by a spirit isolation formation, there was still a middle-grade level 3 spirit spring inside the cave. At the mouth of this spirit spring, there was a pool of half a mu in size. The amount of water coming out of the spring was not small, It could produce 20 to 30 caddies of water in a breath's time. After the spring water flowed out of the pool, not long after, it flowed into a crack in the rock. In the spring water, there was still a lot of spirit energy, just that it was somewhat violent. Wang Daoist took out a wisp of gui water death flame from the space of the spirit pearl and placed it at the mouth of the spring. The gui water death flame did not have the power of the dust returning flame that could even burn stones, so it could not burn all the spring water. But it still had the ability to ignite the violent water attribute spirit energy and turn it into his own spirit energy. When this wisp of gui water death flame landed on the mouth of the spring, the black flame instantly expanded, igniting all the spirit energy in the spring water. A small portion of the spring water was also burned, turning into water attribute spirit energy. Apart from a small portion of water attribute spirit energy and yin qi escaping, most of the spirit energy was used to strengthen the flame. And the spring water that was not burned also became ordinary water that contained almost no spirit energy. Wang Daoist continuously extracted spirit energy from the flame, using it for cultivation. After being burned by the spirit fire, the spirit energy was extremely pure. With a little refining, it could be used for his own use. Then he used the 5 spirits immortal transformation technique to convert the water attribute spirit energy into spirit energy of other attributes. Afterwards, Wang Daoist tried to condense vital essence. After the 5 spirit energy seeds were complete, the spirit energy was extremely pure. Using it to condense vital essence, the speed was more than twice as fast as before with the 4 spirit energy seeds. This cultivation speed was indeed comparable to a double spirit root cultivator with an 8-inch main spirit root and above. Wang Daoist also experienced the feeling of being a genius cultivator. The body refining part of the 5 spirits immortal transformation technique was to draw the 5 elemental spirit energy and a portion of vital essence into the 5 organs. It nourished the 5 viscera and changed the attributes of the 5 viscera, forming a cycle. Among the 5 viscera, the heart belonged to fire, controlling the blood, the spleen belonged to earth, controlling the muscles, the lung belonged to metal, controlling the skin, the kidney belonged to water, controlling the bones, the liver belonged to wood, controlling the tendons. If the 5 viscera were strong, then the tendons, bones, muscles, skin, and qi and blood would all be strengthened. The 5 viscera of the human body were relatively fragile, so one had to be extremely careful in the process of drawing in spiritual energy. If one was not careful, one's internal organs would be damaged. This was also the reason why most body-tempering cultivation techniques did not dare to temper the 5 viscera. Wang Daoyuan's spiritual power carried special attributes, which made the process of merging with his internal organs even more dangerous. Among the 5 elements, wood and water were the most gentle. The water attribute spiritual power contained yin energy, and it had to be channeled into the kidneys. The kidney was too important and could not be tested carelessly. If something went wrong, they would be in big trouble. It was better to start with wood attribute spiritual energy. The special attribute of wood attribute spiritual energy was vitality. It was more gentle and wouldn't easily hurt the liver. He took out the wood attribute spirit power and a portion of the liquid true essence from his dantian and poured it into his liver meridian, finally flowing into his liver. Then, the wood attribute spiritual energy was converted into other attributes and nourished the other 4 internal organs. It took more than 10 days for the nourishment to be completed. His 5 viscera, 6 bowels, and meridians were all nourished. After the initial nourishment, the strength of his 5 viscera had increased by quite a bit. Then he merged another type of spiritual energy and circulated it in his 5 viscera and meridians. After all 5 types of spiritual energy had been circulated, the strength of his 5 viscera and meridians had increased by quite a bit. Then, he could channel the 5 types of spiritual energy into his 5 viscera and circulate them in the same way as before. For the next 8 or 9 years, Wang Daoyuan had been tempering his body in the cave. With the gui water hell flame burning the spirit spring, he quickly obtained spiritual energy and condensed true essence to nourish his 5 viscera. This way, he could save a lot of time to recover and have more time to nourish his 5 viscera and meridians. The results of his body tempering in one day were equivalent to 3 or 4 days of an ordinary body cultivator. The results of these years of cultivation were also very rich, benefiting from the foundation he had laid down in the past 100 years. His current physical strength was no longer weaker than an ordinary body cultivator of the same level. His qi, blood, and physical strength far surpassed those of the same level. Without using any spiritual energy, just relying on his physical strength, a punch was comparable to an ordinary early Zifu realm cultivator's full-strength attack. With this kind of power, it wasn't impossible for him to kill an unprepared mid-Zifu realm cultivator with a single punch. It was simply too suitable to be used with the cloud mist escape. If he used a body cultivation technique, it wouldn't be difficult for him to face an ordinary late Zifu realm cultivator head-on. The berserk spiritual energy of Mount Blood Devil was already negligible to him. It was time for him to infiltrate Blood Devil City. The Gui water hell flame was much easier to control than the dust-returning flame. As long as he extracted all of the spiritual energy from the flame would be extinguished. The extracted spiritual energy would be refined into his body, while the majority would be sent into the space within the spirit pearl to increase the density of the spiritual energy. After putting away all of the formation discs in the cave, he put on the spirit-restricting silk cloak and rode the bone sword towards the south. There was no need to hide the fluctuations of spiritual energy on his body. Demonic cultivators of the Blood Devil clan used the blood essence of vicious beasts to aid their cultivation, so the spiritual energy on their bodies was extremely heterogeneous. Normal demonic cultivators had special attributes to their spiritual energy. Cui Ming had once stayed in Blood Devil City for a period of time. Wang Daoyuan had pried into Cui Ming's memories and had some understanding of Blood Devil City. After flying towards the south for 5,000 to 6,000 kilometers, he arrived at a valley filled with lush vegetation and strange rocks. There was a stream within the valley that flowed out from a karst cave. After entering the cave, he casually walked around in circles. Not long after, a muscular late-stage Violet Palace realm cultivator with bulging muscles leaped out from the crowd. Wang Daoyuan condensed his spiritual energy and punched out. The muscular man punched back. Both of them were forced back 5 to 6 steps. Their physical strength was equally matched. However, Wang Daoyuan only felt pain in his fist. The muscular man, on the other hand, wasn't injured in the slightest. He laughed. "Good kid. You're only a mid-Zifu realm cultivator, but your physical strength is on par with mine. Once you break through to the late Zifu realm, I won't be your match. You have the spiritual energy of the 5 elements, as well as many other special attributes. Your qi and blood far surpass others of the same level. How come I've never heard of such a powerful junior in the blood demon lineage before? What's your name? What are you doing here?" Wang Daoyuan shook his fist, saying, "My name is Zhou Ming. I heard that Blood Devil City is nearby, so I want to go in and take a look." The muscular man's face turned solemn. He asked, "Daoyu, who did you hear about Blood Devil City from?" Wang Daoyuan didn't mind. "Dead people." The muscular man laughed loudly. "Little brother, you truly are a straightforward person. Since you are also a member of my Blood Devil lineage and are powerful enough, entering Blood Devil City shouldn't be a problem. Please follow me." After speaking, he led the way, with Wang Daoyuan following behind him. Their physical bodies were powerful, and their walking speed was extremely fast. However, they still took half the time it took to brew a cup of tea before arriving at a place covered by a formation. They followed the muscular man into the formation. Inside was a stone room, and an old peak Zifu disciple was sitting cross-legged in the middle of the room. In front of him was a table with many jade slips placed on it. Seeing the muscular man bring Wang Daoyuan over, the old man asked, "What's your name? Have you been to Blood Devil City before?" Wang Daoyuan replied, "I'm Zhou Ming. This is my first time to Blood Devil City." The old man's divine sense entered a jade slip, then took out a round purple command medallion and sent his divine sense into it. After several breaths of time, he tossed the command medallion to Wang Daoyuan. "This is your command medallion. Remember not to lose it." Wang Daoyuan accepted the command medallion, then cupped his hands in thanks. In his heart, he was secretly delighted. His plan to deceive everyone had succeeded. Even a peak Zifu disciple wasn't able to see any clues. As long as he didn't encounter a Jindan devil cultivator, there shouldn't be any problems. The old man waved his hand, and a tunnel appeared in the ground. This is the entrance to Blood Devil City. You can enter with this command medallion. Chapter 460. Wang Daoyuan followed the tunnel downwards. This winding tunnel seemed to have been modified from the foundation of a natural karst cave. At every section of the tunnel, there were cultivators inspecting him. After walking for the time it took to brew a cup of tea, he arrived at the bottom of the tunnel. There were 2 Peak Zifu disciples guarding the door. Wang Daoyuan handed the command medallion to them. They used their divine sense to examine the command medallion, then returned it to Wang Daoyuan. Afterwards, the stone wall behind him opened, and Wang Daoyuan walked in. Behind the stone wall was not a city, but a small castle. There were more than 10 late and Peak Zifu disciples stationed inside. After Wang Daoyuan entered, a Peak Stage Zifu disciple walked out of the castle and came to the side of the stone wall. He asked Wang Daoyuan, "Fellow Daoist, your innate talent is extraordinary. Are you interested in joining the Blood Fiend army?" Supposedly, the Blood Demon army was the subordinate of the Jindan devil cultivators. They were usually responsible for managing the affairs of this underground space. Wang Daoyuan cupped his hands. "I'm an unaffiliated person who doesn't like restrictions. I came to Blood Demon City this time because I wanted to experience the holy land of us blood demons. I have no intention of joining the Blood Demon army. Please forgive me, Dao." Most devil cultivators didn't like restrictions. There were very few loose cultivators who were willing to join the Blood Demon army. This Peak Zifu disciple didn't want to force him. He smiled regretfully. "Since that's the case, I won't force you. In the future, if Dao Yu changes your mind, you can come find me at any time." The two exchanged some pleasantries, then Wang Daoyuan circled around the castle and walked inside. After entering the stone wall, the space inside was no longer a karst cave. Instead, it had been forcibly carved out from the rock. The underground space was hundreds of meters high, and one couldn't see the end of it. The underground space was illuminated by many magic treasures, so it wasn't dark at all. There were plants all around, and there were rivers and lakes on the ground. There were even some small hills, and many caves had been carved out on the hills. Apart from the stone wall above and the stone pillars supporting the rock, there wasn't much difference between this place and the outside. Wang Daoyuan couldn't help but sigh. How much manpower and resources did it take to excavate such a large underground space? After passing the stone wall, they would arrive at the Blood Demon City after walking for more than 10 miles. The Blood Demon City was a square-shaped city with a side length of more than 50 miles. It was located at the northern edge of the entire underground space. The top and bottom of the city walls were connected to the rock stratum, and there were only a few gates that allowed entry and exit. Wang Daoyuan arrived in front of the city gate and entered after showing his token. The city was no different from an ordinary human cultivator city. There were all kinds of shops and some small devil cultivator clans. The Blood Demon City had a formation that could soften the violent spiritual energy. There were ordinary humans living in the city. It was said that their number was not small, possibly close to 1 million. They were all descendants of demonic cultivators. From birth to death, they were not allowed to leave Blood Demon City. These ordinary people were not of much help to cultivators, but they could give birth to offspring with spirit roots, which was an important source of devil cultivators. Thanks to Cui Ming's memories, he had gained some understanding of the Blood Devil City. However, he still pretended that he didn't know anything. He wandered around the city for a while before finally choosing an inn to stay in. Usually, he would inquire about all kinds of information at the place where he ate. After more than a month, he grasped some detailed information and began to go out to look for work. In the south of the Blood Demon City, there was a place where missions were issued. It was also a place to look for work. It was called the Mission Hall. Wang Daoyuan arrived in front of the Mission Hall and found that there were quite a lot of people. After all, devil cultivators also needed to cultivate. Cultivation required all kinds of resources, and work was unavoidable. In the center of this place was a large hall with the words, Mission Hall, written on it. Around the hall, there was something similar to a bulletin board. These bulletin boards were refined from some kind of spirit jade, and the information on them was inscribed with spiritual sense. When many devil cultivators saw a suitable mission, they would take their tokens and go to the mission hall to receive the mission. For example, mining ores, breeding fierce beasts, looking after spiritual fields, refining tools, alchemy, and so on. The work of mining ores was particularly suitable for Wang Daoyuan. After all, he had come to look for spiritual fire. The metal attribute spiritual fire was either in a spiritual vein or in an ore vein. To look for spiritual fire, mining ores was the most suitable. Cui Ming had done this work before, but he was not strong enough and was bullied in the mines. He could not earn any spiritual stones there, so he left. Wang Daoyuan went to the mining mission board and used his spiritual sense to check the mission information. One of the information was, mining innate ferocious gold. For every kilogram of innate ferocious gold, a reward of 1,000 spiritual stones. No limit. Wang Daoyuan was somewhat astonished. He said in surprise, "There's even innate ferocious gold?" A nearby late-stage Zifu disciple laughed. "What's so great about innate ferocious gold? This blood demon city also has Tai fine gold. It's just that it's not open to the public. Otherwise, there would be so many people trying to mine it that their heads would burst." When Wang Daoyuan heard about Tai fine gold, he was somewhat delighted. If he could get a large amount of Tai fine gold, it would be easy to upgrade the White Tiger blade. Right now, it was better to go to innate ferocious gold. With a large amount of innate ferocious gold, it would be helpful to upgrade the White Tiger blade. He went to the mission hall and gave his token to an elderly late-stage Zifu disciple. Accept the innate ferocious gold mission. The elderly cultivator was astonished, but he did not say anything. He used his spiritual sense to inscribe some information on the token. Then he gave him a jade slip and said, "This is the details of the mission. Just do it according to the requirements. If you don't meet the minimum requirements, you can't leave the mine and you can't accept other missions." The other demonic cultivators lining up to accept missions also had looks of disbelief on their faces. Some people whispered, "Is this person a raw melon egg? He actually dares to accept the innate ferocious gold mission. That place is filled with people who are punished for their crimes. Out of 10 people who go in, 9 don't come out. It's hard to cultivate there." Wang Daoyuan did not take their words seriously. He took the jade slip and checked the details, then left the mission hall. This innate ferocious gold mine was more than 500 kilometers west of Bloodfiend City. In order to prevent people from stealing the ores, ordinary mines required spatial treasures to be checked. Wang Daoyuan put the interspatial ring, most of the storage bags, and spirit beast bags into the space of the spiritual pearl. Only 2 storage pouches were left, containing the bone sword, as well as some miscellaneous pills and talismans. He had also put away the soft armor and the soul-binding silk cloak. Right now, he was no different from an ordinary poor demonic cultivator. He rode his sword to the entrance of the innate ferocious gold mine and showed the token to a fierce-looking Peak Zifu realm cultivator. He took the token and checked it, then said, "Leave the token with me. Let me check the storage bag. No one will care what you do in the mine, but when you come out, you have to hand over 500 kilograms of innate ferocious gold. Don't even think about escaping. There are formations everywhere you can go. If you have the ability to dig another tunnel, pretend I didn't say anything." Wang Daoyuan did not think much of it. He was familiar with digging tunnels. He had dug hundreds of kilometers when he was at Foundation establishment. He had never seen a rock layer that the dust-returning flame could not burn through. After finding the spiritual fire, it would not be difficult to dig a tunnel and escape from the underground space. He took off the 2 storage bags at his waist and handed them to the fierce-looking cultivator. After checking the storage bags, he cursed, "Another pauper." With that, he returned the bone sword and storage bag to Wang Daoyuan. He took all the miscellaneous items. Although this guy was greedy, he knew his limits and did not take the only Dharma artifact. Then, he opened the door of the mine and Wang Daoyuan walked in. The moment he entered the mine, he felt a dense malevolent aura rush towards him. The ore near the entrance of the mine had long been dug out, but there was still such a dense malevolent aura. How strong was the malevolent aura around the ore? Cultivators below the Zifu realm would quickly be affected by the malevolent aura if they stayed here. Although the consciousness of Zifu realm cultivators would not be affected easily, their bodies would be corroded if they lived here for a long time. No wonder so many people were shocked when he accepted the innate ferocious gold mine mission. One had to worry about harming their bodies while cultivating here. It only consumed spirit energy and could not be replenished. Ordinary cultivators would not be able to survive here. Chapter 461. Those who could survive in this mine for a long time either had extremely strong bodies that could resist the corrosion of the baleful aura, or they could use the baleful aura to cultivate. Regardless of the type, they definitely weren't weak. Wang Daoyuan's metal attribute spiritual energy already contained some baleful aura, so it wouldn't be a problem for him to absorb some more. Baleful aura was derived from metal attribute spiritual energy and yin energy. His fire attribute spiritual energy also contained pure yang energy, so he wasn't afraid of baleful aura. Even if he absorbed a bit more baleful aura, he could still consume it. After entering the mine, he didn't walk very far before he encountered two forks in the road. There was no difference in the concentration of baleful aura between the two forks. He chose the left one. After walking for less than half a kilometer, he encountered another 3 forks in the road. He continued to take the left one. More and more forks appeared, appearing less and less regularly. It was hard to say when a fork would suddenly appear. The deeper he went, the thicker the baleful aura became. Wang Daoyuan had already gone dozens of kilometers into the mine. He couldn't remember how many forks he had taken. The baleful aura here was too dense, affecting the soul of a Zifu realm cultivator. The baleful aura could also interfere with the detection of spiritual sense. Wang Daoyuan's spiritual sense was able to detect things up to 50 kilometers away. Here, he could only detect things up to 1,000 meters away. To a Zifu realm cultivator, this distance wasn't much different from having their face pressed against each other. Adding on the fact that the mine was extremely winding, the stone walls were even more effective against spiritual sense than the baleful aura. If a cultivator was lying in ambush in one of the forks and wanted to ambush him, he wouldn't have much time to react. Wang Daoyuan gripped the bone sword in his hand, ready to summon the Xuanwu shield at any time to deal with a possible ambush. All of a sudden, his divine sense detected a wisp of spiritual power fluctuations about 200 meters in front of him. He immediately used the sword shadow godlight technique, creating 10 sword shadows to protect his body. He asked, "Who's there? If you don't come out, I'll attack." The trace of spiritual energy fluctuation was immediately retracted. Wang Daoyuan controlled a sword shadow to attack the source of the fluctuation. The sword shadow arrived in an instant, and the person hiding didn't dare to continue hiding. He took out a long sword and broke the sword shadow. He smiled and said, "Daoyo's spiritual sense is very sharp. Even in this kind of place, you can still find me." This person was wearing a black cloak. There were almost no blood chi fluctuations on his body, and his spirit energy fluctuations were extremely weak. It was impossible to tell what cultivation level he was at. The hand that held the sword was all skin and bones, and the skin was still grayish-black. Wang Daoyuan condensed another sword shadow and asked, "What does Daoyu want? Do you want to fight to the death or get out of my way?" The black-clothed man replied, "Of course I'm making way for you. This old man has been corroded by this evil qi until I'm neither a human nor a ghost. My spiritual power has long been exhausted, and I can only rely on my remaining Zhenyuan to support myself. How can I be Daoyo's opponent?" This person's spiritual energy had been exhausted, and he could only rely on his true essence, so he wouldn't be able to last for long. In his eyes, he was just food that could prolong his life. He would never let him go. Fighting was inevitable. His body had already deteriorated to such an extent. Once his soul was injured, he would probably die immediately. It was not possible to refine a clone. However, the black-clothed man had stayed in this mine for quite some time. He could fish for information from the black-clothed man and figure out the situation in the mine. Wang Daoyuan asked, "Since Daoyu can't stay here any longer, have you thought of leaving?" The black-clothed man shook his head and smiled bitterly. "I was imprisoned here because I committed a crime. If I want to leave, I'll have to pay 5 times the amount of heaven ferocious gold to atone. There's a Tier 4 array formation guarding outside the cave. Previously, many Daoyu tried to force their way out, but they were all killed by the array formation. This heaven ferocious gold vein has been mined for close to 10,000 years. How much or can there be left? I've been here for more than 20 years and have only dug up 5 kilograms. After being corroded by the evil qi for 20 years, life and death are only a matter of time. I wonder if Daoyu has any spiritual items on him. I'm willing to use all the heaven ferocious gold I have to exchange for some spiritual items with Daoyu." Wang Daoyuan shook his head. "When I came in, the medicinal pills and other spiritual items I had on me were all confiscated by the guards. Now, all that's left is this bone sword and 2 empty storage pouches. Everything else is gone." The black-clothed man was somewhat puzzled. "Daoyu, didn't you commit a crime and get sent here? How can you bring medicinal pills and other spiritual items here?" Wang Daoyuan replied, "I accepted a mission from Bloodfiend City's mission hall and came here to mine for heaven ferocious gold. I saw that the reward for the mission was 500 kilograms of heaven ferocious gold and 1,000 spirit stones. It was quite generous, so I came." The black-clothed man had a mocking look on his face. "That mission has been hung up in Bloodfiend City for thousands of years. In the past, it was indeed an excellent mission. At that time, given the power of Zifu disciples like us, digging up 500 kilograms of heaven ferocious gold really didn't take much effort. But in the past few thousand years, the heaven ferocious gold vein has been completely mined out. Only in the deepest parts will there be a chance to find some ore and refine a few taels of heaven ferocious gold. Completing the mission can take hundreds of years. But the baleful aura there is extremely strong. Very few people can withstand it, and even those who can last for 10 years are few and far between. Now, although this place is called the Heaven Ferocious Gold Mine, it's actually a prison. It's specially used to imprison cultivators like me who have committed crimes. As for why the mission hasn't been revoked, perhaps it's because the Heaven Ferocious Gold Mine's guardian wants to deceive someone like Daoyu who doesn't know the truth. Before entering the mine, they'll use the excuse of inspecting the items as an excuse to get some oil. If they're lucky enough to encounter a cultivator who can dig up 500 kilograms of Heaven Ferocious gold, they'll make a huge profit. Daoyu just entered and still has a lot of spiritual energy in his body, and he's also a pentaspirit veins cultivator. I wonder if you can give me a bit of metal-type spiritual energy? I'm willing to use Heaven Ferocious gold in exchange." Wang Daoyuan nodded. "How much Heaven Ferocious gold is Daoyu willing to give, and how much spiritual energy do you want to exchange for it?" Hearing Daoyu's intention to exchange, the black-clothed man hurriedly untied the storage pouch at his waist. He said excitedly, "All of my Heaven Ferocious gold is here. There's a bit more than 17 kilograms in total. Please kindly accept it, Daoyu. As for spiritual energy, it'll be fine as long as it's comparable to 10 mid-grade spirit stones." The total amount of spiritual energy in 10 mid-grade spirit stones was roughly 20% of an ordinary Zifu disciple's total spiritual energy. 17 kilograms of Heaven Ferocious gold, even if it was only mid-grade 3rd tier, was worth at least 100,000 spirit stones. This place was near a 4th tier spirit vein. If there was high-grade 3rd tier or even low-grade 4th tier Heaven Ferocious gold, its value would be even higher. Wang Daoyuan nodded. "As you wish, Dao." The black-clothed man tossed over a storage pouch. Demonic cultivators weren't easy to deal with, especially those on the verge of death. There was definitely a trap in this storage pouch. Wang Daoyuan had long since prepared for it. When the storage pouch was still 50 meters away from him, he immediately used the cloud mist escape to travel 1.5 kilometers through the air. The moment he escaped, his storage bag exploded, and black smoke gushed out from it. This black smoke contained an extremely dense, baleful aura, and it seemed to be mixed with corpse poison. Soon after, over 100-inch-long poison needles shot out from the black smoke. Over 10 of them flew towards Wang Daoyuan. 10 sword shadows flew out from Wang Daoyuan's side to block the poison needles. In the end, he lost 3 sword shadows to shoot down all the needles. He felt a lingering fear. If he hadn't been prepared, this move would have been enough to take his life. Seeing that his attack had failed, the black-clothed man turned and left. Wang Daoyuan replenished his sword shadows and used them to chase after the old man. He himself followed behind the sword shadows. The black-clothed man took out a coffin. When the coffin opened, there was a high-grade third-tier corpse inside. Looking at the corpse's attire, it should be a wandering cultivator of Blood Demon City. This corpse had bulging muscles and silver skin. It should be one of the legendary silver-armored corpses. Silver-armored corpses had extremely strong defensive abilities. Cultivators of the same level would find it hard to break through their defenses. Using the corpses of blood demons to refine a silver-armored corpse would only increase its defensive abilities. In addition, the baleful aura here was extremely dense. This corpse's strength was probably comparable to a peak Zifu disciple. The 10 sword shadows struck the silver-armored corpse, producing a metallic sound. The silver-armored corpse was actually unharmed. The black-clothed man let out a strange laugh. This time, Daoyu won't be able to escape. It's best if you give up resisting. I haven't tasted fresh blood for many years. If I'm happy, I might even let your soul go into reincarnation. Chapter 462. Elite zombies were divided into iron-armored zombies, silver-armored zombies, and gold-armored zombies. Iron plate corpses were just slightly tougher than regular refined corpses of the same level. It was nothing special. The silver-armored corpse's body was extremely strong. It was difficult for cultivators of the same level to break through it, but they generally had weaknesses. As long as one could attack its weakness, the entire silver-armored corpse could be crippled. If it was refined into a metal elite zombie, it would have no weaknesses. Only absolute strength could destroy it. Although silver-armored corpses had weaknesses, they were usually extremely secretive. Other than the person who refined them, no one knew their exact location. As for this silver-armored corpse, its strength should be comparable to the peak of the Zifu realm. If he couldn't find his weakness, even if he used the 5 elements devil-subduing seal, it would be difficult for him to win. After all, the 5 elements devil-subduing seal specialized in subduing fiendish cultivators and devils. It did not have any special effect on the silver-armored corpse. However, no matter how strong the silver-armored corpse was, it still needed someone to control it. Rather than fighting the silver-armored corpse to the death, he might as well kill the black-clothed man. When the master of the corpse refiner was killed, he would enter a berserk state and his strength would increase greatly. However, without any intelligence to speak of, it was not difficult to deal with. Moreover, this berserk state would not last for too long, and he would soon fall into a deep sleep. As long as it was not stimulated, it could continue sleeping. The silver-armored corpse pounced towards Wang Daoyuan. Wang Daoyuan put away his bone sword and took out his white tiger blade and black tortoise shield. When the silver-armored corpse pounced over, Wang Daoyuan used cloud mist escape and flitted past the right side of the silver-armored corpse. With the black tortoise shield in his left hand and the white tiger blade in his right, he slashed across the side of the silver-armored corpse's waist. The white tiger blade left a shallow wound on the waist of the silver-armored corpse with an ear-piercing sound of metal scraping against each other. The sharpness of the white tiger blade, coupled with Wang Daoyuan's physical strength and attainments in the way of the sword, could only barely cut open the silver-armored corpse's skin. Although the silver-armored corpse was a refined corpse and its body was stiff, its speed was not slow at all. After his attack was dodged, he turned around and threw a punch at Wang Daoyuan. Wang Daoyuan used the black tortoise shield to receive the punch. The strength of a third-tier upper-grade refined corpse was completely dependent on its physical strength. It was not enough to break the black tortoise shield, but the impact was not small. Wang Daoyuan was knocked back several feet with his shield. He only stopped when he hit the stone wall of the tunnel. Fortunately, the 5 spirits' immortal transformation art tempered the body from the inside out. His internal organs were also very strong and could withstand the impact. He only felt his blood and qi boiling, but it was nothing serious. If it were an ordinary cultivator, they would definitely suffer from internal injuries if they took the silver-armored corpse's punch head-on. Seeing this, the man in black was pleasantly surprised. Daoyu's body is so strong. I thought I was lucky enough to get a metal-type cultivator and refine him into a silver-armored corpse. I didn't expect that I would encounter another good material for refining a silver-armored corpse today. It seems that I can't drink your blood anymore. It would be more useful to refine you into a silver-armored corpse. With that, he took out a silver sword and attacked Wang Daoyuan. This was a high-grade, 3rd-grade magic artifact. Judging from how effortlessly he was controlling it, this person should be a late-stage Sifu disciple. Wang Daoyuan brandished the white tiger blade in his hand and chopped at the flying sword. The flying sword was actually intact. When the 2 swords collided, the silver sword even burst out with a strong baleful aura. It should be refined from heavenly demon gold. The man in black withdrew his sword and the silver-armored corpse pounced over again. Wang Daoyuan used the cloud mist escape again and moved closer to the man in black while dodging the silver-armored corpse's attack. This man in black looked like he had exhausted all his qi and didn't have much spiritual power left. No matter how he looked at it, he was easier to deal with than the silver-armored corpse. He poured a large amount of spiritual power into the white tiger blade and slashed at the man in black. The man in black blocked with his sword. Wang Daoyuan let go of the white tiger blade and punched his right fist with fire attribute spiritual power at the man's head. The man in black's left hand collided with Wang Daoyuan's fist and was knocked back more than 3 meters. At this time, the skin on the man's left fist was burned by pure yang qi and emitted a rotten smell. Wang Daoyuan's right fist was also left with a pitch-black mark. A strong corrosive yin qi followed his meridians and drilled into his body. This was the symptom of corpse qi entering the body. He circulated his fire attribute spiritual power and used pure yang qi to burn the corpse qi. This person obviously still had spiritual wisdom and almost no qi, but there was still a little bit. Logically speaking, he should be a human. However, a living person shouldn't be so afraid of pure yang qi and shouldn't have such a strong corpse qi. Recalling the records left behind by the 10,000 corpse Daoist master, this guy should be half human and half corpse, or a living corpse. Human cultivators forcibly refined corpse qi into their bodies and merged it with qi and blood to strengthen their bodies. Once the corpse qi passed through qi and blood, this person could be considered a living corpse. This kind of transformation was almost irreversible. After becoming a living corpse, the body would continuously transform into a refined corpse. Even if the body completely turned into a refined corpse, the mind would not be affected. The soul or divine soul would still have the characteristics of a living person. A refined corpse completely merged the body and divine soul, but the divine soul couldn't completely merge with the body. The lifespan of the divine soul didn't change. When it reached the end, it still had to enter reincarnation. Without the divine soul, a half-corpse would become the same as an ordinary refined corpse. Half-corpses had strong bodies and were more flexible than refined corpses. They could better cultivate the Tao of corpse control, so their strength couldn't be underestimated. He refined himself into a half-corpse and suffered the pain of corpse qi entering his bones. If it wasn't a last resort, no one would be so cruel to themselves. He probed, "Daoyu really is a ruthless person. You actually refined yourself into a half-corpse." Hearing this, the black-clothed man was stunned and immediately said, "Daoyu really is experienced and knowledgeable. You actually know about half-corpses. I've been trapped here for more than 200 years and should have died long ago. It's just that I haven't taken my revenge and am unwilling to die like this. In my early years, I obtained a corpse refining inheritance and killed other cultivators to refine them into refined corpses for my use. My body couldn't resist the erosion of the baleful aura, so I borrowed the corpse chi of this silver-armored corpse to refine myself into a half-corpse. Now, I'm not far from the end of my life. It's impossible for me to advance further on my Dao path. I just want to leave this damned place, return to Blood Demon City and slaughter my enemies. Your body is strong. If you refine yourself into a silver-armored corpse, you may be able to help me escape. Saying this, he pounced towards him with the silver-armored corpse. Wang Daoyuan used the cloud mist escape again to dodge the attack. Going on like this wasn't a solution. Although refined corpses and half-corpses were difficult to cultivate, in terms of endurance, they far surpassed human cultivators. Although this half-corpse strength wasn't as good as his, it was impossible to kill him instantly under the protection of the silver-armored corpse. If this continued, he would die without a doubt. Although the Scarlet Yang real fire restrained refined corpses, the baleful aura here was dense and would offset the power of the Scarlet Yang real fire. However, he could use the gray water death flame to attack the half-corpse. The half-corpse still had the divine soul. The gray water death flame had the effect of burning the divine sense and soul. It was still very destructive to him. Drawing out a wisp of gray water death flame from the space of the spirit pearl, he continuously injected water attribute spiritual power. The gray water death flame burned fiercely. At the same time, he used the divine fire burning sky technique to control the gray water death flame. After receiving the inheritance of the 100 spirits true lord, the power of the divine fire burning sky technique greatly increased, and the power of the flame could be increased by 4 to 5 times. The Bai Feng Phantom carried the gray water death flame and rushed towards the half-corpse. The half-corpse probed the divine sense into the gray water death flame. A black flame followed his divine sense to burn his forehead. The half-corpse knew that this thing attacked the divine soul and immediately let the silver-armored corpse block in front. The silver-armored corpse didn't have a divine soul, and the soul essence was also integrated with the body. The gray water death flame couldn't hurt his soul essence and couldn't cause substantial damage. However, the corpse chi was also derived from yin chi. The gray water death flame could still burn part of the silver-armored corpse's corpse chi. The half-corpse controlled the flying sword and constantly attacked him. While Wang Daoyuan dodged the attack, he constantly increased the input of spiritual power, making the gray water death flame burn more vigorously. The black flame quickly wrapped the silver-armored corpse's whole body. The half-corpse's intelligence wasn't low. He quickly saw that Wang Daoyuan's purpose was to use the gray water death flame to explore the silver-armored corpse's weakness. His divine sense didn't dare to touch the gray water death flame. The refined corpse couldn't cast spells and couldn't quickly extinguish the fire. Soon, Wang Daoyuan noticed that the silver-armored corpse's navel was abnormal. The corpse chi in other places could be quickly replenished after being burned by the gray water death flame, but the navel couldn't be replenished. The weakness of this silver-armored corpse was at the navel. Chapter 463. Seeing that Wang Daoyuan had found the silver-armored corpse's weakness, the half-corpse took out his flying sword to attack. Wang Daoyuan used the black tortoise shield and white tiger blade to catch the flying sword and used his consciousness to interfere with the half-corpse's control of the flying sword. The half-corpse's body could not nourish the soul well, so his consciousness was not strong. With his consciousness suppressed, he could not control the flying sword freely. Wang Daoyuan took out a universe ring from the space of the soul pearl and wrapped the flying sword with the soul-binding silk cloak, cutting off the connection with his consciousness and forcefully storing the flying sword into the universe ring. Without the flying sword, the half-corpse's strength was greatly reduced. He wanted to get rid of it, but the silver-armored corpse pounced over again. It seemed that if he did not get rid of the silver-armored corpse, he would not be able to take down this half-corpse. Although the silver-armored corpse's navel was its weakness, it was not something that could be broken so easily. Wang Daoyuan held the white tiger blade with both hands and injected a large amount of spirit energy into it. Using the sword shadow divine light technique, 10 sword shadows opened up a path in front. With the black tortoise shield in front of him, he used the cloud escape and attacked the silver-armored corpse's navel. Now that he had taken the path of body refinement, his physical strength had increased greatly. With a white tiger blade in hand, his physical strength would be added to its power. When using a flying sword to kill enemies, it only used spirit energy and consciousness. Compared to wielding a long sword, its power was still much weaker. Non-body refinement cultivators did not have physical strength, so the difference in power was not great. Generally, they would not fight with a long sword. But body refinement cultivators still liked to use a long sword when attacking with all their strength. Seeing that he had seen through the silver-armored corpse's weakness, he planned to kill it in one blow. The half-corpse rushed up, wanting to help the silver-armored corpse out. Wang Daoyuan controlled the Beiyuan phantom and pounced on the half-corpse. The Beiyuan phantom was now made up of black flames. Once touched by something with a soul, the soul would definitely be damaged. The half-corpse did not dare to go forward, and without his flying sword, he was no match for the Beiyuan phantom. The silver-armored corpse wanted to dodge, but he could not fly. It was impossible to escape Wang Daoyuan's high-level escape technique with his inflexible limbs. The 10 sword shadows and the white tiger blade struck the silver-armored corpse's navel without any deviation. The strength of the silver-armored corpse's navel was also extremely high. The 10 sword shadows could only penetrate an inch deep. Following closely behind, the white tiger blade pierced half a foot deep into the silver-armored corpse's spine. Under the pain, the silver-armored corpse attacked Wang Daoyuan with all its might. Unfortunately, its weakness had been exposed, and its physical strength was rapidly declining. With the black tortoise shield in hand, Wang Daoyuan resisted with all his might and was not pushed back. He infused a large amount of fire-attributed spirit energy into the white tiger blade and infused it into the silver-armored corpse. The pure yang qi of the fire attribute quickly corroded the silver-armored corpse's internal organs. The silver-armored corpse roared again and again, desperately attacking Wang Daoyuan. At this point, it was already dead for sure, so Wang Daoyuan did not take its attack head-on. He drew his sword and retreated, dodging the attack. The silver-armored corpse's body emitted a rotten smell, and the silver light on its body gradually disappeared. The gui water death flame continued to burn on its body. In less than half a cup of tea's time, the corpse qi within the silver-armored corpse was burned to nothing. The silver-armored corpse had become an ordinary mummy. It couldn't even be considered a refined corpse. The half-corpse was chased around by the Beiyuan's phantoms. After being refined into a half-corpse, its strength was not without loss. Without much spirit energy in its body, the power of the spells it cast was extremely poor. The least affected was flying swords, but his flying swords were gone. Those half-baked spells were not enough to threaten the divine sky-burning technique. Although the physical body was strong, it was still not very useful against spiritual fire. The half-corpse hurriedly begged for mercy, "Dao, spare my life. All I ask for in this life is nothing more than revenge. I only ask that Dao you can help me get out and take revenge. After that, I am willing to destroy my soul and leave behind a complete corpse." After a half-corpse dies, its physical body and corpse qi will perfectly merge. It is not impossible to refine it into a metal-armored corpse. Wang Daoyuan said disdainfully, "A metal-armored corpse is nothing. After I form my jinden, a metal-armored corpse can be destroyed with a flip of my hand. For me, cultivating the Dao of corpse is not very useful. It also damages the physical body. I disdain it." Finished speaking, he controlled the Beiyuan's phantoms to wrap around the half-corpse's body, but did not directly attack its spirit. The half-corpse said again, "This mine is extremely complicated. The fiendish qi and rocks block the consciousness. Even if a Jindan cultivator came down, it would be impossible to figure out the situation in a short time. And I have stayed in this mine for more than 200 years. I know it like the back of my hand. Daoyo's strength is not bad. If you cooperate with me, we can definitely escape from this damned place." Wang Daoyuan's face was full of disdain. "If you want to understand the mine, there is no need to keep you." Finished speaking, a soul-severing blade struck towards the half-corpse's forehead. Previously, he thought it was a lamp that had run out of oil and could not be refined into a doppelganger. Now that he knew it was a half-corpse, there was naturally no problem. A half-corpse could not be killed casually. A half-corpse violet palace was not nourished by a physical body. No matter how strong it was before, it could barely maintain it now. This soul-severing blade even held back its strength, but it still broke through the half-corpse violet palace and injured its spirit. Then he used the soul-severing blade to break the half-corpse spirit and injected it into the subsoul before storing it in the spiritual pearl. As for the silver-armored corpse's corpse, he burned it with fire. Half a day later, the half-corpse doppelganger finished fusing with the subsoul. Wang Daoyuan pried into the half-corpse memories and found out that the half-corpse's name was Jingping. He was born in the Blood Demon City and his parents were ordinary people. He also married and had children in the Blood Demon City and joined the Blood Demon Army. Later on, he offended a high-ranking member of the Blood Demon Army and was framed to this damned place. His family was also slaughtered. His physical body was not strong and could not withstand the fiendish qi in the mine, so he had no choice but to refine himself into a half-corpse. In this mine, there were 5 powerful cultivators at the peak of the Violet Palace realm. Although his personal strength was not strong, he could still be on equal footing with them by relying on the silver-armored corpse. The 6 of them each occupied a territory and did not interfere with each other. Zhengping even opened up a cave abode in this space as a place to stay. He had collected a lot of infernal gold over the years, including low-grade 4th-grade infernal gold, which was placed in the cave abode. Wang Daoyuan had just gone through a big battle and his spiritual sense was exhausted. He needed to find a safe place to recuperate. He released his doppelganger Zhengping from the spiritual pearl and had him lead the way to his cave abode. Zhengping was proficient in refining and array formations, especially in array formations. He was actually at the high-grade 3rd grade and was also at the middle-grade 3rd grade in refining. With his attainments in array formations, his cave abode had never been discovered by anyone. With him leading the way, they soon arrived at the entrance of the cave abode. This was an ordinary stone wall in the mine. Even with Wang Daoyuan's spiritual sense, he could not see anything special about it. Zhengping's doppelganger took out a token. The token flashed and the stone wall in front of them retreated, revealing an entrance that was 1 foot wide and 1 foot tall. Wang Daoyuan followed behind Zhengping and entered the cave abode. It was a completely different world inside. It was a stone room that was 300 feet wide and more than 100 feet tall. The furnishings were simple. There was a stone couch and a stone table. There were 3 storage bags on the table. One of them contained 500 to 600 caddies of high-grade 3rd grade infernal gold. When he opened the second storage bag, a thick malevolent aura surged towards him. Even with his physique, he could not withstand it. There were a few fist-sized infernal gold pieces that weighed more than 15 caddies in total. He hurriedly fastened the storage bag and kept it in the spiritual pearl. There was also a storage bag that contained a few dermic weapons of fiendish cultivators. Since they were not of much use to him, he kept them in the spiritual pearl as well. He took out a spirit isolation formation disc from the spiritual pearl and handed it to his doppelganger. The spirit isolation formation could isolate the spirit qi of the 9 elements. However, it was not very effective against the malevolent aura and could only weaken it slightly. Wang Daoyuan took out a few black jade lotus seeds and consumed them. He drank a few mouthfuls of spirit wine and meditated to recover his spirit energy and spirit consciousness. There were no traces of metal elemental spiritual fire in the mine that Zhengping controlled. He did not dare to provoke the other 5 peak Violet Palace realm cultivators. The fact that they could live a normal life here meant that they were all ruthless people. It was best not to provoke them. However, he could not return empty-handed after entering a treasure trove. Zhengping knew of a place where he could still find infernal gold. Even the 4th grade infernal gold could be found there. Chapter 464. After Wang Daoyuan recovered his spirit power and consciousness, he was not in a hurry to dig for the heaven-hellish gold. After all, the experts in the mine all had their own territories. Other cultivators would not come to Zhengping's territory. His main goal was to find the metal attribute spirit fire. Although Zhengping did not find any traces of the spirit fire, he could not give up. He still had to work hard. Using the spirit-seeking compass to explore the surroundings, even if he could not find the spirit fire, he could dig up more fourth-grade heaven-hellish gold. The spirit-seeking compass in the past was a second-grade Dharma artifact and had a closer detection range. Moreover, it was severely affected by the evil aura in the mine and could not be used. He was now a third-grade weapon refiner and had 2 weapon refiner clones. He could refine a third-grade mid-grade spirit-seeking compass. Of course, this spirit-seeking compass could not be compared to the one Xianxiao of the Archaic Arcanum sect took out when exploring the hidden cloud continent. In terms of using compasses, the Archaic Arcanum sect was the best. Even Xianxiao's natal Dharma artifact was the mysterious yin-yang compass. The functions of compasses and other things would be affected in this kind of mineral vein. Especially spiritual items with strong evil aura like the heaven-hellish gold, which interfered greatly with the compass. In order to accurately detect the mines and find the metal attribute spirit fire, he had to make some improvements to the spirit-seeking compass. An ordinary spirit-seeking compass could search for the 5-element spirit chi, but his target was only metal attribute spirit chi and evil aura. It was not important to him whether or not he could search for spirit chi of other attributes. He just needed to determine the concentration of metal attribute spirit chi and evil aura. This meant that he had to modify a compass specifically to detect metal attribute spirit chi and evil aura. When Daoist Lei Yen was copying the legacy of the ancestors, Wang Daoyuan had copied down all of the tool runes. Among the copied patterns, some could determine the concentration of spirit chi and automatically search for the place with the highest concentration of spirit chi. To refine such a compass, there was no need to start from scratch. He only needed to use an ordinary third-grade spirit-seeking compass as a base and modify it with such patterns. In the space of the Spirit Pearl, Tu Yuming and Zheng Ping, the 2 third-grade weapon refiners, worked together and had 40 times the time. It was not difficult to modify a compass. He didn't need to improve the compass to perfection, as long as it could be used. Before the improvement of the spirit-seeking compass was completed, Wang Daoyuan had nothing to do but cultivate, so he paid more attention to the situation in the space of the spirit bead. The purple cloud dragon-patterned ginseng that he had planted before exploring true Monarch 100 Spirits abode was already over 1,000 years old. It had been harvested by his clone and stored in a jade box. A new batch had been planted, but it would take more than 10 years to harvest. These few years, Wang Daoyuan had always been busy and did not have time to refine the purple rhyme pill either. Now, staying in this broken mine, not to mention the violent spiritual energy, there was also an extremely dense baleful aura. The baleful aura would affect one's soul. If one were to refine pills in a state where one's mind was not completely clear, an explosion would definitely be unavoidable. Since he still had some purple rhythm pills on hand, it wouldn't be a problem even if he didn't refine any pills for now. The concentration of spiritual chi in the space of the spiritual orb had already reached the level of upper-grade 3rd stage. The peach tree sapling that nurtured the spiritual fire of life was also beginning to grow slowly. Its height had already reached 5 to 6 inches, and the spiritual fire of life was also becoming more vigorous. There were many spiritual objects around the spiritual fire of life. For example, the hidden cloud tea tender branch that he obtained from True Monarch 100 Spirits' small medicine garden last time was also planted here. The tender shoot back then had already become a tea tree more than 3 feet tall, and its grade had also already reached lower grade 3rd stage. The Gue water death flame did not have much activity, but the surrounding Yellow Springs willow grew a little. Wang Daoyuan had no use for the Yellow Springs willow for the time being, so he had never cared about it. The changes around the dust-returning flame were not small. The earth attribute spirit vein continuously produced soil, forming a circular mound with a diameter of 1 foot and a height of more than 2 feet below the dust-returning flame. The dust-returning flame burned quietly above the mound, but it did not affect the surrounding spiritual plants either. Around the scarlet yang true fire, several transplanted blood fire hibiscus had also grown a lot. The largest one was originally an old branch. Now, it was already 20 to 30 feet tall, and the trunk's diameter was also more than a foot. The other blood fire hibiscus were all young shoots on the old branches, and now they were only 7 to 8 feet tall. The red-feathered crow, who had been staying beside the scarlet young true fire, gave Wang Daoyuan a headache. It had been 8 or 9 years since it hatched, and it had been more than 300 years in the space of the spirit bead. After more than 300 years, the fledgling was still only the size of an adult's fist. The fluff on the body was black, and the fluff on both wings was red. There was no sign of growing feathers at all, and it still looked like a fledgling. Its cultivation was only a little higher than when it first came out of the shell. It was now middle grade rank 2, which was equivalent to the middle stage of foundation establishment. Even if it was a real divine beast, it should not grow so slowly. These years, the red-feathered crow's life had been good. Every day, it ate the pine nuts of the red-scaled pine. The pine nuts it ate added up to dozens of middle-stage foundation establishment cultivators. Needless to say, it soaked in the scarlet young true fire every day, and there were a few blood fire hibiscus next to it. This was the most suitable environment for the red-feathered crow to live in. Even the 100 Spirits Lord could not provide such a good environment for the red-feathered crow. The 100 Spirits Lord's beast-taming inheritance was not in his hands, and there was no way to know the reason why the red-feathered crow was not growing. He could only ask his clone Cui Ming to check the 10,000 Spirits Atlas and the Beiyuan records. He wanted to see if other spiritual beasts with the bloodline of divine beasts had similar situations. In the end, there was no such record in the Beiyuan records. In the 10,000 Spirits Atlas, he found some ways to raise other demon birds. The inheritance of the 1,000 Spirits sect might have come from the top force of the Valley of Beasts. In terms of demon beasts, the 1,000 Spirits sect was quite authoritative. According to the 10,000 Spirits Atlas, most demon birds were proud and unwilling to obey their masters easily. To completely tame them, one must start with the eggs of demon birds. It also emphasized that demon birds with extraordinary bloodlines, after the fledgling hatched, must not throw away the eggshell. This was because there might be something on the eggshell related to its bloodline. When the demon bird grew up and could swallow the eggshell could be fed to it. This would help the demon bird awaken its bloodline and grow quickly. Without the eggshell, ordinary demon birds might be fine. However, demon birds with extraordinary bloodlines were prone to slow growth and difficult to awaken their bloodline. This time, Wang Daoyuan could be sure that the reason why the scarlet-feathered black chick could not grow was because of the lack of eggshell. Fortunately, he felt that the scarlet-feathered black chick's eggshell was quite extraordinary and might have some use, so he kept it properly. Now, it really came in handy. He ordered his clone Cui Ming to take out the storage bag with the eggshell. He took out the eggshell and put it next to the scarlet-feathered black chick's mouth. When the little guy saw the eggshell, its eyes widened and it pounced on it, desperately pecking at the eggshell. The scarlet-feathered black chick's egg itself was the size of a goose egg, and there was not much in the eggshell, so it was quickly pecked clean by the chick. After eating the eggshell, the chick walked to the side of the red sun primordial fire, clung to the flame, and fell asleep. As time passed, the scarlet-feathered black chick's body did not change much, but short reddish-gold feathers grew on its wings and tail. 2 years later, the scarlet-feathered black chick finally woke up. Its feathers were already more than an inch long, and the fluff had not completely faded. As soon as it woke up, it desperately ate the pine nuts of the red scale pine. Wang Daoyuan used his divine sense to explore the scarlet-feathered black chick's body. Although the little guy looked like a reincarnated hungry ghost, there was no problem with its body. Seeing that its new feathers were reddish gold, Wang Daoyuan named it Red Feather. These 2 years were equivalent to 80 years in the space of the Spirit Pearl. Zheng Ping and Tu Yoming's clones were not idle, and they also had some results in improving the spirit-seeking compass. Using the heaven ferocious gold as the raw material, they refined a spirit-seeking compass that could search for metal-type spiritual power and evil aura. Chapter 465. The improved spirit-seeking compass would emit 2 beams of spiritual light when activated. One of them was silver in color and was used to detect metal-type spiritual energy. The other was blue-black, used to detect baneful qi. The 2 beams of light couldn't penetrate the rock very well. They could only penetrate 3,000 feet into the rock stratum, which wasn't as good as the undisturbed Grade 2 spirit-seeking compass. The only advantage was that it wouldn't be disturbed by metal-type spirit chi and baneful chi. It was very suitable to be used here. After all, it was just a rough improvement. It was enough to detect metal-type spirit chi and baneful chi. Wang Daoyuan activated the spirit-seeking compass in his hand. 2 beams of light, one white and one black, flew out. Without using his divine sense to control the direction, the 2 beams of light would automatically search for the place with the densest metal-type spirit chi and baneful chi. The 2 beams of light entered the stone wall north of the cave abode. This made Wang Daoyuan relieved. He didn't have to choose between finding the Grade 4 Heaven Fiend Gold or the Metal Spirit Vein or Spirit Core first. He still had to worry about being discovered when he dug outside the cave abode. It just so happened that Zhengping's cave abode was hidden by an array formation. It was safer to dig here. Moreover, the place where Zhengping dug out the Grade 4 Heaven Fiend Gold was a few hundred feet north of the cave abode. Next was Wang Daoyuan's best skill, digging holes. He drew out a wisp of dust-returning flame from the space and ignited the stone wall. This place wasn't like Mingsha Plain. Although there was a lot of earth-type spirit chi in the rocks, there was more metal-type spirit chi. The earth-type spirit chi obtained from burning the rocks could barely keep the dust-returning flame burning. Sometimes, it wasn't enough and Wang Daoyuan had to use some extra spirit chi to replenish it. They didn't move very fast. The tunnel was 5 feet in diameter, so they could only move 30 to 40 feet forward in 2 hours. Half a month later, they reached the place where Zhengping dug out the Grade 4 Heaven Fiend Gold. The baneful chi and metal-type spirit chi were indeed denser here, and there were more Heaven Fiend Gold ores. Every few feet, they could dig out 1 or 2 pieces of Grade 3 superior grade Heaven Fiend Gold the size of a fist. After a few days, the spirit-seeking compass detected a piece of or with strong baneful chi and metal-type spirit chi more than 300 feet ahead. Since it appeared in a Heaven Fiend Gold vein, it could only be a piece of Grade 4 Heaven Fiend Gold. Wang Daoyuan increased the output of his spirit energy and quickly pushed forward. 7 or 8 days later, an irregular spherical piece of Heaven Hellish Gold with a diameter of about 3 feet appeared. The baleful aura here was extremely strong, and Wang Daoyuan had no choice but to cast a level 3 spell that he basically didn't need, Flaming Divine Armor spell, relying on his fire spiritual energy to resist the corrosion of the baleful aura. Judging from the baleful chi, it was also a 4th tier lower grade. Controlling the returning dust flame, Xiaochen burned all the rocks around this rank 4 inferior grade Heaven Demon Gold. Then, he put it into a universe ring. This piece of 4th tier inferior grade Heaven Murderous Gold weighed at least 300 pounds. It was enough to make a group of early-stage golden core cultivators drool. Wang Daoyuan continued to drive the spirit-seeking compass after digging out this large piece of Heaven Hellish Gold. 2 streaks of light flew out. This time, they didn't head north, but rather diagonally downwards. Wang Daoyuan was overjoyed. He was looking for the place with the densest metal element spiritual chi and evil chi. He was looking for the source of the ore vein. Generally speaking, metal veins came from lava, and the source of the veins was relatively deep underground. The veins turned downwards, which meant that he was about to find the source. As he continued downward, the evil chi became stronger and stronger. The Flaming Divine Armor technique couldn't withstand it at all. He ordered the clone in the space to use the Bloodfire Fusang branch to refine an armor for himself. Half an hour later, the middle-grade Tier 3 armor was completed. It was complete with armor, greaves, and a helmet. The armor was not even as strong as a 3rd-tier lower-grade Dharma artifact. However, the armor was engraved with dense flaming patterns. Under the activation of his spiritual power, his entire body seemed to be wrapped in flames. Most of the evil chi was isolated outside. This way, he could stay in this dense evil chi for a long time. He controlled the returning dust flame and continued downward. After half a month, the evil chi became denser and denser. Even with the Bloodfire Fusang armor, it was difficult to withstand. In this half a month, he didn't find any large pieces of Heaven Hellish Gold. He only dug up a few pieces that were not even the size of a fist. At this moment, the two streaks of light of the spirit-seeking compass separated. The greenish-black light headed towards the southwest, while the silver light continued to head downwards towards the north. His goal was to find the metal spiritual fire. Naturally, he wasn't interested in the evil qi. The direction of the blue-black light should be the earth-vein evil qi that formed the heaven-hellish gold. Wang Daoyuan followed the direction of the silver light and continued forward. Next, there was only the pure and extremely violent metal element spiritual energy. With the metal spiritual qi supporting it, the evil qi couldn't go any deeper. Wang Daoyuan didn't need to wear the blood-fire Fusang armor anymore. Without the evil qi, there was naturally no heaven-hellish gold below. Wang Daoyuan dug up a few pieces of black iron crystals. These were originally ordinary black iron. After being cleansed by the metal spiritual qi for many years, the impurities were removed and they became completely transparent. The black iron crystals weren't very strong, but they contained extremely pure metal spiritual qi. They were excellent supplementary materials for refining metal spiritual artifacts and nurturing metal spiritual artifacts. The heaven-hellish gold above should be formed by the black iron crystals being corroded by the evil qi. The deeper he dug, the denser the metal spiritual qi became. At this moment, the density of the metal spiritual qi was very close to 4th tier mid-grade. The distance between this place and the metal spiritual vein of Blood Demon Ridge was also getting closer and closer. Wang Daoyuan continued forward. 5 days later, the spirit-seeking compass found a hole 300 feet diagonally below. The hole was filled with pure metal spiritual qi, and the density had reached the limit of a 4th tier mid-grade spiritual vein. Wang Daoyuan was overjoyed. He had dug up the metal spiritual vein's spiritual eye. Whether Blood Demon Mountain had a metal spiritual fire or not depended on this. Whether there was a spiritual fire or not, this trip was about to end. Wang Daoyuan was full of energy. He urged the dust-returning flame to burn the rock layer. At this rate, he would be able to reach the spiritual eye in 8 or 9 days at most. Controlling the dust-returning flame didn't take much effort. He urged the spirit-seeking compass to explore in other directions. Since this place could produce many black iron crystals, it might also produce other precious metal spiritual qi. Before entering the heaven-hellish gold mine, he had heard that Blood Demon City had Tai pure gold Oregon. And Tai pure gold or must have a large amount of metal spiritual qi. His goal was the spiritual eye, which was the place most likely to produce Tai pure gold Oregon. If he could find a Tai pure gold ore, he might be able to pick up a few pieces of 4th tier Tai pure gold. The spirit-seeking compass really did find a metal spiritual material, but it was more than 300 feet to the east. Because his spirit-seeking compass was too crude, it could only detect pure metal spiritual qi. From this, he deduced that there might be a metal spiritual material. As for what kind of material it was hard to say whether it was Tai pure gold or not. The most important thing now was the metal spiritual fire. Even 4th tier Tai pure gold was far less important than the spiritual fire. He continued to push toward the spiritual eye. After more than 20 days, he finally reached the location of the spiritual eye. The dust-returning flame burned through the rock wall where the spiritual eye was, and a pure metal spiritual qi gushed out. This concentration was only a hair away from 4th tier spiritual qi. The metal spiritual qi dissipated, and Wang Daoyuan walked into the hole. The hole wasn't big, only 2 or 3 feet in diameter. At the bottom of the hole, there were dense cracks in the rock. The metal spiritual qi seeped out from these cracks. In the center of the hole, there was an irregular round silver metal ball more than a foot in diameter. Wang Daoyuan was no stranger to this thing. It was Tai pure gold. Inside the Tai pure gold, there were violent metal spiritual qi fluctuations. This piece of Tai pure gold wasn't perfect. There was a crack at the bottom that went deep inside. Wang Daoyuan's divine sense penetrated the crack and probed inside the Tai pure gold. He saw a silver flame inside. The flame was only as thick as a chopstick and less than an inch tall. Chapter 466. The aura emitted by this flame was very similar to that of the Tai essence gold. It seemed that the Tai essence gold had condensed such a flame under the nourishment of extremely rich metal spiritual energy. The Tai essence gold had an extremely strong murderous aura. Perhaps this flame had similar characteristics. Of course, it was hard to say what it could do. The current spiritual energy fluctuation of this flame was not strong. It was only of the third level of the middle grade. Perhaps it had not been nurtured for long enough. With this metal spiritual fire, the 5 element spiritual fires were finally gathered. This piece of Tai essence gold was worthy of being a 4th level middle grade material. The murderous aura it emitted was extremely sharp. Even with Wang Daoyuan's physical body, it still left small wounds. Wang Daoyuan was so excited that he did not notice that there were many small wounds on his body. He put the entire piece of Tai essence gold into the space of the spiritual pearl and placed it near the metal spiritual vein. The metal spiritual fire came out of the Tai essence gold and merged with the spiritual vein. The Tai essence gold was put into the 100 spirit ring. After all, this thing's murderous aura was too strong. Directly putting it in the space of the spiritual pearl might destroy many spiritual plants. After his consciousness left the space, Wang Daoyuan felt a little pain on his body. At this time, he was already covered in wounds. His clothes were also torn. Although the wounds were not deep, the murderous aura had entered his body and caused extreme pain. He mobilized his fire spiritual energy to consume the murderous aura. Only then did he feel better. Without the murderous aura, these wounds were just ordinary external injuries. He used the rejuvenation technique on himself and the wounds were almost healed. Then, he checked the metal spiritual material vein that he had discovered earlier. He released the dust-returning flame at the vein and continued to burn the passage. He did find some ores. However, these ores were mostly black iron crystals. The spiritual energy fluctuations were at least of the 4th level lower grade. A few of them were of the 4th level middle grade. In addition to the black iron crystals, there were very few pieces of Tai essence gold the size of a finger. The Tai essence gold vein should be above. However, Wang Daoyuan did not dare to dig anymore. The Tai essence gold vein was extremely important to any force. There would definitely be many backup plans to protect the vein. If he continued to dig up, he might be discovered. He had already obtained the spirit fire and a large piece of level 4 Tai essence gold. Although there was a hole in the inside, the remaining part still weighed more than 50 kilograms. In addition to the heaven ferocious metal he obtained earlier, it was sufficient for him to refine the white tiger saber to medial grade tier 4. There was no need for him to continue taking risks. Since such a large piece of primordial gold essence and a metal attribute spiritual fire could be found here, they must not have been discovered. He wasn't sure how far this place was from the ground, but he roughly estimated that it was at least more than 50,000 feet away. If it were anywhere else, the spiritual sense of a golden core cultivator might be able to detect something. However, this place was near a rank 4 spirit vein. Furthermore, there was a baleful aura and a murderous aura from primordial unity essence gold, which interfered with his spiritual sense. Even a peak golden core cultivator would not be able to detect this place with their divine sense. After he took away the metallic spirit fire, the cracks in the rocks below were still spewing out metallic spirit chi. The concentration of spiritual energy in Blood Demon City shouldn't have any obvious changes. There was no need to mobilize so many people to investigate the situation of the spirit veins. In order to not cause too much damage to the spirit vein, he had to leave this place as soon as possible. Before he left, he summoned a wisp of dust-returning flame and burned all the bloodstains he left behind. This was to prevent others from discovering the situation here and tracking him through the bloodstains. Demonic cultivators of the blood demon lineage were best at playing such tricks. After cleaning up the traces, Wang Daoyuan withdrew from the spiritual eye and used the Earth Mountain technique to seal the tunnel he had dug earlier. At this time, in an underground stone room of a palace in Blood Demon City, a young cultivator and a middle-aged cultivator were meditating. The young cultivator woke up from his meditation and said, I feel a slight fluctuation in the spirit vein's spirit qi. It's a little different from before, but I can't tell what the difference is. The middle-aged cultivator smiled. There are indeed some fluctuations. The spirit qi is slightly denser than before, so it's normal for the spirit vein to fluctuate slightly. It's just that you've just formed your golden core not long ago. Cultivators below the golden core realm won't be able to detect such minute fluctuations. After experiencing so much, they won't find it strange anymore. It's not a bad thing anyway, so you don't have to worry about it. The young cultivator nodded and closed his eyes, continuing to meditate. Wang Daoyuan naturally didn't know about the matter of the two golden core cultivators and continued to seal the tunnel. He wasn't afraid. Even if a golden core cultivator sensed the abnormality, they wouldn't be able to use their spiritual sense to probe the spiritual eye. If they wanted to get to the bottom of the situation, they would have to investigate many minds. It was impossible for a golden core cultivator to do this, so they could only send out Zifu disciples. A place like the innate fiend gold mine was so poorly managed that the mine tunnels were like a maze. Spiritual sense was also restricted here. Zifu disciples might need a long time to figure out the mine tunnels, so there was no need to rush to escape. The work of sealing the tunnel was much faster than digging the tunnel. It only took 4 to 5 days to seal all the tunnels that had been dug out. After returning to the cave, Wang Daoyuan's spiritual sense entered the space of the spiritual pearl. The scene in the space gave him a huge shock. The 5 spirit veins had all grown to 3 meters in length. The spirit veins had already reached the upper grade of the second stage, and the density of the spirit qi spewing out was still rapidly increasing. As the driving force behind the changes in the spirit veins, the 5 spirit fires had also undergone some changes. The mound of dirt below the dust-returning flame was slowly growing larger. Moreover, the speed at which the earth attribute spirit veins produced soil had increased dramatically. Wang Daoyuan also noticed that at the edge of the spiritual pearl's space, there was a circle of new soil that hadn't been planted. To him, 40 mu of space wasn't enough, so he had to frequently remove low-grade spirit plants. There was no way he could leave an empty space outside. He used his spiritual sense to measure the entire space, and the area of the spirit field seemed to have increased. The additional area of the spiritual fields was very small, less than 100 acres in total. For the entire space of the spiritual pearl, it was a drop in the ocean. But if it continued to increase, it would still be considerable. The increase in the space of the spiritual pearl was definitely caused by the 5 elemental spirit fires. The growth of the spirit fires was extremely fast, and their influence on the space of the spiritual pearl would also increase. The growth of the space of the spiritual pearl should also continue to increase. He also observed the changes in the other spirit fires. The life spirit fire didn't change much. It was just that the flame had become a little bigger, and the life force it produced was richer. A spirit spring appeared where the Gui water death flame was. The amount of water in this spirit spring was extremely small, and it would take half an hour to fill a teacup. If it weren't for the bubbles that appeared from time to time, Wang Daoyuan really wouldn't have noticed it. The spring water that gushed out was exactly the same as the Gui water death spring. It also contained water spirit energy and pure yin qi, but the concentration was much lower. Now, this spirit spring was only second grade. The spring water of the spirit spring came from the water spirit vein. As the spirit fire strengthened, the grade of the water spirit vein would also gradually increase, and the spirit spring would also grow. In time, it might be able to catch up to the Gui water death spring. On the side of the scarlet yang true fire, the flame was a little bigger, and the fire spirit energy and pure yang qi produced was a little more. The pure yang qi spread out, and merged with the pure yin qi produced by the Gui water death flame above the dust-returning flame, producing traces of purple qi. The flame of the metal attribute spirit fire was now more than 3 inches tall, emitting traces of killing intent, exactly the same as the killing intent of the Tai essence gold. It seemed that this spirit fire had inherited the characteristics of the Tai essence gold. If he refined it into a spiritual power seed, his metal-attributed spiritual power would be infused with killing intent. Together with the white tiger blade, its lethality would definitely increase greatly. Moreover, this metal attribute spirit power was especially suitable for nurturing the white tiger blade. It was born from the Tai essence gold, and its characteristics were similar to the Tai essence gold. Wang Daoyuan named it the Tai golden flame. Chapter 467. Wang Daoyuan tested the flow of time in and out of the space. It was still 40 times faster and did not increase. He did not know if the flow of time would increase after he repaired the crack in the spirit pearl. If he stayed in the mine, he would not be able to find out what was happening outside. If anyone discovered the change in the spirit vein, he would have to dig a hole and escape. If no one discovered the change in the spirit vein, he could hand over 250 kilograms of heaven ferocious metal and walk out openly. Since he did not know anything now, he could not take the risk. No one would be able to find him for the time being, and he could just stay in Zhengping's cave abode for the time being. Now that he had gathered all 5 element spirit fires, it was time to prepare for refining them. Refining spirit fires was extremely dangerous, and if he did not do it properly, there was a high chance he would be devoured by the spirit fire. If he was lucky, his dantian and meridians would be severely damaged, and he would become a cripple. If he was lucky, he would be burned to ashes by the spirit fire. There were many ways to refine spirit fires, and each had its pros and cons. The 5 elements perfected being also recorded the way to refine spirit fires. His method was to first extract the essence of the spirit fire and condense the spirit energy seed. He would then draw the entire spirit fire into his body and fuse it with the spirit energy seed. Because the two were similar in nature, they could fuse well. The spirit fire would not reject the spirit energy seed too much and would not cause a backlash. The biggest flaw of the 5 elements perfected beings method was that cultivators who did not cultivate the 5 spirit immortal transformation technique would not be able to use it. Perfected Lord Bai Ling's fire controlling records also left a method to fuse spirit fires. Wang Daoyuan's cultivation technique was the 5 spirit immortal transformation technique after all, and it was more suitable to use the 5 elements perfected beings method. Even though he had all 5 element spirit fires, he could not start refining them now. The 5 spirit fires were of different grades. The life spirit fire, dust returning flame, gray water hell flame, and scarlet yang true flame were all superior grade 3 spirit fires. The newly obtained Tai golden flame was a middle grade 3 spirit fire. Due to the difference in grades, the 5 spirit energy seeds would not be balanced after refinement. In his last words, the 5 elements perfected being repeatedly warned that he had to balance the spirit energy seeds or he would lose his life. The 4 superior grade 3 spirit fires came from different sources and grew at different speeds as well. The dust returning flame was a superior grade 4 spirit fire in the hands of the 5 elements perfected being. The gray water death flame was born from a 4th level spirit spring and was once a 4th level spirit fire. The scarlet yang real fire was even more impressive. When it was in the hands of the 100 spirits true lord, it was at least a level 5 spiritual fire. These spiritual fires used to be of very high grades. After refining it, his growth would be even faster. Even if they were of the same grade when refined, the 3 flames would grow faster when cultivating in the future. He needed to constantly balance them in order to ensure that the 5 element spiritual fires grew at the same speed. If the grade was different during refinement, it would be much more difficult to maintain the balance of the 5 elements spiritual fire in the future. It might even affect the speed of cultivation. To be safe, he decided to let them grow in the space of the spirit orb first. Once they were of the same rank, he would refine them into his body. The growth of the spiritual pearl space also required spiritual fire. After refining the spiritual fire, it would affect the growth of the spiritual pearl space. No matter how important the space in the spiritual orb was, it was only a resource. His ultimate goal was to make himself stronger. After refining the spiritual fire, even if he did not take any elixirs, he could quickly cultivate to the peak of the golden core realm. His own cultivation was definitely more important than the growth of the spiritual pearl space. However, it was not impossible to balance the growth of his own cultivation and the spiritual pearl space. the scarlet yang true fire was different from the other four flames. It was not naturally formed, but artificially created. Back then, after perfected Lord Beiyuan obtained the scarlet feathered crow, he used the scarlet feathered crow's natal true fire to condense the scarlet yang true fire. The method of condensing the spiritual fire was recorded in perfected Lord Beiyuan's fire control records. A small portion of the spiritual fire's origin was separated, which was the fire seed. Then the essence of the spiritual fire was extracted and condensed into a pseudo-spiritual fire. With sufficient spirit qi, pseudo-spiritual fire could burn stably. However, it was extremely fragile and would be extinguished easily at the slightest movement. Furthermore, if it was provided with sufficient spirit qi, its growth would be extremely slow. When the spiritual fire's origin was sufficient, the quantitative change would lead to a qualitative change and it would become a real spiritual fire. The original spiritual fire would be severely injured after losing a portion of its origin. However, as long as there was sufficient spirit qi, it could still recover. In the process of condensing the pseudo-spiritual fire, if there was not enough spirit qi, it was likely to fail. Even if it succeeded, the pseudo-spiritual fire would need to be nurtured for a long time. Back then, perfected Lord Beiyuan used more than 200 years to nurture the pseudo-spiritual fire into the scarlet yang true fire. During the nurturing process, the pseudo-spiritual fire could be extinguished easily and had to be paid attention at all times. Wang Daoist could also use this method to condense 5 pseudo-spiritual fires and nurture them in the space of the spiritual pearl. Even if the pseudo-spiritual fire was nurtured into a real spiritual fire, its grade would not be comparable to the original spiritual fire for a long time. However, it should be enough to maintain the growth of the spiritual pearl's space. With the flow of time 40 times faster, there was no need to worry about long nurturing and slow growth. The original spiritual fire was stronger, so naturally, it would be refined into the body to assist in cultivation. In this divine ferocious gold mine, the most suitable pseudo-spiritual fire to condense the Tai golden flame was the Tai golden flame. However, the Tai golden flame's grade was the lowest, and Wang Daoist did not have the experience of condensing a pseudo-spiritual fire, so he might fail. If he failed a few times, too much of the spiritual fire's origin would be consumed, and it would take a long time to raise its grade. Naturally, the Tai golden flame could not be used for such a destructive experiment. The one that was least afraid of damaging its origin was the life spiritual fire. When Wang Daoist first obtained the life spiritual fire, it was still hidden in the top bud of the peach tree sapling. Now, the flame was more than 10 inches tall. With the support of the peach tree sapling, its growth speed was far from what other spiritual fires could compare to. Even if the origin of the spiritual fire was damaged, it could recover quickly. The surroundings were filled with metal element spirit qi and malevolent aura. Condensing a pseudo-spiritual fire could only be done in the space of the spiritual pearl. His spirit entered the space of the spiritual pearl, extracted a wisp of the life spiritual fire, and injected spirit energy to strengthen it. Finally, it formed a fist-sized ball of green flame. Then, his spirit consciousness probed the boundary between the life spiritual fire and the top bud of the peach tree sapling. Half of the life spiritual fire's origin was in the top bud, and the other half was in the flame. Condensing a pseudo-spiritual fire required about 1/10 of the spiritual fire's origin. The life spiritual fire was gentler and could be directly probed with spirit consciousness to retrieve the origin of the spiritual fire. Soon, his spirit consciousness separated a sesame-sized green flame from the life spiritual fire. After the flame was separated, the height of the life spiritual fire, which was originally more than 10 inches tall, instantly decreased by 1 inch. Even though the flame was small, it possessed an extremely rich life force. If he refined this thing directly, there was even a possibility of reviving the dead. The origin of the spiritual fire was also considered a natural treasure. No one knew how it was formed and no one could create it casually. Even some high-grade cultivation methods required the use of heavenly materials and earthly treasures in order to cultivate spiritual fire. He had truly never heard of any ancient mighty being who could use spirit qi to create the origin of the spiritual fire directly. Injecting a sesame-sized flame into a fist-sized flame was the embryonic form of the pseudo-spiritual fire. Next, Wang Daoyuan converted all the spirit energy in his body into wood element and channeled it into the space of the spiritual pearl. His spirit controlled all the wood element spirit energy and injected it into the embryonic form of the pseudo-spiritual fire. After receiving a large amount of wood element spirit qi, the fist-sized green spirit fire did not grow. Instead, it shrunk continuously. The spirit energy within was absorbed by the sesame-sized origin of the spiritual fire, and the origin of the spiritual fire was also gradually growing. Before long, all the spirit energy in Wang Daoyuan's body was exhausted. As the pseudo-spiritual fire was not formed, it could not rely on the spirit qi in the space to burn on its own. The moment he stopped injecting spirit energy, the ball of spiritual fire would be extinguished instantly. It was useless even if he drank wine to recover his spirit energy. At this moment, he could not circulate his cultivation technique. The spirit energy that he replenished was also not the wood element spirit energy with vitality and was useless. Chapter 468. At this moment, Wang Daoyuan did not have any better ideas and could only extract the spiritual flame essence from the life spiritual fire. However, it was a pity that most of the spiritual energy was used to strengthen the origin of the spiritual flame and there would not be much essence left. There would only be a large amount of spiritual flame essence left when he used the dust-returning flame to burn the stone wall or the Gui water nether spring. There was not much essence left in the life spiritual fire and it was not enough to form the pseudo-spiritual flame. He was deep in the mineral vein and there was no way for him to find wood elemental spiritual energy. He was too arrogant. Back then, perfected Lord Hundred Spirits only formed the pseudo-spiritual flame when he was in the late-stage golden core stage. Furthermore, he had the help of the red-feathered crow back then. His current strength was too far from that of a true expert. There was no hope of forming it successfully and the pseudo-spiritual flame was about to be extinguished. Helpless, he sent the pseudo-spiritual flame to the side of the peach tree sapling. When forming the pseudo-spiritual flame, it must not come into contact with the original spiritual flame. Because the two had the same origin, the spiritual flame would devour the pseudo-spiritual flame the moment they met. Instead of wasting the spiritual flame's origin and essence, it was better to merge them into the life spiritual fire. The green pseudo-spiritual flame was not absorbed by the life spiritual fire when it came into contact with the peach tree sapling. Instead, the peach tree sapling grew a half-inch long side branch that carried the pseudo-spiritual flame. Pure wood elemental spiritual energy was injected into the pseudo-spiritual flame. There was no need for Wang Daoyuan to make a move now. Since the peach tree sapling could nurture the life spiritual fire to this extent, it was not a problem for it to stabilize the pseudo-spiritual flame. Wang Daoyuan had always been curious about the peach tree sapling. Through the 5 Elements Sage's Beiyuan records, he knew that the peach tree sapling should be a high-grade spiritual wood that was at least grade 5. However, he had no clue as to what kind of spiritual plant it was. Perfected Lord Hundred Spirits should know about the peach tree sapling, but it was a pity that Wang Daoyuan only obtained his cultivation technique and inheritance of fire control. The records of spiritual plants should be kept in the elixir hall in Perfected Lord Hundred Spirits' cave abode. It was a pity that the items in the elixir hall were divided by the 9 forces and Wang Daoyuan did not get anything. The wood-attributed false spirit flame should be stable. With the help of the peach blossom sapling, it should not take long for the false spirit flame to grow into a spirit flame. There was no need for him to care about the rest. It seemed that if he wanted to condense the pseudo-spirit fire again in the future, he would have to make use of the geographical advantage. For example, Mingsha Plain's pseudo-spiritual fire was more suitable for condensing the dust-returning flame. Release the returning dust flame and burn him underground for a month or 2. You can get as much returning dust flame essence as you want. The fire attribute pseudo-spiritual fire was easy to deal with. There was a fiery sunstone mine under the Huangwei mountain. However, Igniting the mineral vein might summon the lava. It would be fine if it didn't erupt, but once it did, Zifu disciples wouldn't even have a chance to flee. There was also the underground karst cave on the other side of the Gui water nether spring, which could lead directly to the magma, and could also be used to condense the fire attribute pseudo-spiritual fire. The best place to condense the water attribute pseudo-spirit fire was the Gui water nether spring. Metal-type pseudo-spiritual fire was the most difficult to find. If he wanted to take advantage of the geographical location, he would have to find at least a large third-grade metal or vein or a third-grade high-grade metal-type spirit vein. It was definitely not suitable to do this in this mine. Obtaining large amounts of metal-type spiritual fire essence was not like using the returning dust flame to pave the way. When condensing the pseudo-spiritual fire, he had to keep the Tai golden flame burning intensely for a long time in order to obtain sufficient spiritual fire essence. This was the underground of Blood Demon City. If he caused such a huge commotion, it would definitely disturb the metal-type spirit vein here. By then, as long as there were golden core cultivators in Blood Demon City, he would be discovered. There was no need to risk his life for the sake of condensing a pseudo-spiritual fire. Wang Daoyuan stayed in the cave abode for half a year and planned to leave as well. He had already found his main target, the metal-type spiritual fire, and also found a lot of heaven ferocious gold and a large piece of Tai essence gold. There was no point in continuing to stay here. He had to leave the tiger's den as soon as possible. In the past half a year, the embryonic form of the wood-type spiritual fire in the space of the spirit pearl had made considerable progress. On the side branches of the peach blossom sapling, the wood-type pseudo-spiritual fire had already stabilized and was no longer in its embryonic form. It could slowly absorb the dispersing wood-type spirit chi and convert it into spiritual fire essence. The peach blossom sapling was still injecting pure spirit chi and life force endlessly. It was only a matter of time before it turned into a true spiritual fire. He had also sent out his clone, Zhengping, to patrol outside many times. However, he did not discover anyone entering. Could it be that the cultivators of Blood Demon City truly did not notice that he had arrived at the metal-type spirit vein and taken away the spiritual fire? Or could it be that the upper echelons of Blood Demon City had discovered the abnormality of the spirit vein? However, they did not know what was wrong and were planning to wait for him to jump out on his own accord? If it was the former, he would be fine after handing over 250 caddies of heaven ferocious gold. He would then turn in the mission and leave Blood Demon City. However, if it was the latter, it would be dangerous. This heaven ferocious gold vein had been abandoned for many years and the remaining ores were extremely rare. If he were to successfully dig out 250 caddies of heaven ferocious gold in just a few years, it would be too conspicuous. The upper echelons of Blood Demon City were thinking of waiting for someone to jump out. If he were to hand over the heaven ferocious gold, it might arouse suspicion. Demonic cultivators were not reasonable people. If there was anything suspicious, they would capture him immediately. While it did not matter if he were to hand over 250 caddies of heaven ferocious gold, he could not risk his life for it. After careful consideration, Wang Daoyuan decided to dig a tunnel to escape. With the Tai golden flame and the returning dust flame, it would be much easier to dig an escape tunnel. Zhengping used to be a member of the Blood Demon Army and had a better understanding of the situation in Blood Demon City. Blood Demon City was located at the northern edge of the underground space. There were many underground mines. The entrance to the Heaven Ferocious Gold Mine was located to the west of Blood Demon City. The mine extended to the north. Above him was no longer the underground space of Blood Demon City, but the mountain range of Blood Demon Ridge. According to Zhengping's memories, Blood Demon City had very few properties in the northwest. Every once in a while, Blood Demon Army cultivators would patrol there. There were no permanent cultivators. Of course, the information that Zhengping knew was all from over 200 years ago. It was hard to say what the current situation was. To the south was to continue deeper into the southern wasteland. To the north was the main metal-type spirit vein. To the northeast was the Tai pure gold mine. To the west were many properties of Blood Demon City. These places were guarded by Blood Demon Army cultivators for a long time. To dig a tunnel to escape, the northwest was indeed the best choice. He took out a wisp of the returning dust flame and a wisp of the Tai golden flame and placed them on the rock wall in the northwest of the cave. The combination of the two flames was very suitable for this place. The Tai golden flame burned the metal-type spirit energy in the rock layer, leaving behind loose rocks. The returning dust flame burned these rocks very quickly. In about 2 hours, he could advance about 200 feet. Moreover, the two spirit flames could obtain enough spirit energy by burning the rock layer. He did not need to inject spirit energy to maintain the flames. In order to prevent too much movement, he kept extracting the essence of the two flames and injecting it into the space of the spirit pearl to nourish the spirit flames. After more than a year, Wang Daoyuan had dug more than 1,000 miles of tunnel. While digging, he also harvested more than 50 kilograms of level 3 heaven murderous gold. In addition to digging, he also sealed the tunnel near the cave for thousands of feet to prevent others from discovering his escape route. Using the spirit-seeking compass, he found that 300 feet ahead was no longer a mountain, but an empty environment. After investigating the surroundings, he found that this place was a cliff. In other words, he had already left Blood Demon City's territory and was outside. He hurriedly dug forward. In just half a day, he had dug through the remaining rock layer. The moment the tunnel connected to the outside world, a gust of fresh air rushed to his face. His heart was suddenly enlightened. Before he could enjoy the fresh air, he heard a shout. Where did this wild kid come from? What are you doing sneaking around here? Chapter 469. Wang Daoyuan came out of the tunnel and looked up, only to see two late-stage Zifu realm devil cultivators flying towards him. These two were burly men. One had a curly beard, while the other had a goatee. They were both wearing the uniform of the Blood Demon Army. This place wasn't far from Blood Demon City. Once they started fighting, it was very likely that they would attract a large number of Blood Demon Army soldiers. It wasn't impossible to alarm Golden Core Devil cultivators. At this time, he had to be courageous and pretend that he had come here by chance. He took out his bone sword and released his metal attribute spiritual energy. A baleful aura enveloped his body as he replied, "What do you care what I do here? If you want to kill me and steal my treasures, then come and try. Just the two of you aren't necessarily my match." Seeing him so arrogant, the two men were startled. Normally, when they were patrolling, the loose cultivators they met would be obedient upon seeing them wearing the uniform of the Blood Demon Army. This was the first time they had seen someone who dared to be so rude to them. The curly-bearded cultivator asked, "This is our territory. Since you're sneaking around here, we naturally have to investigate. Tell us, what are you doing here?" Wang Daoyuan continued to play dumb. Who doesn't know how to talk empty words? This is the wilderness, and there's no defensive formation on the mountain. You say it's your territory, but I say it's mine. Don't talk nonsense with me. If you want to fight, then do it quickly. After beating you up, I still have to open up a cave and cultivate. Hearing this, the two men looked at each other. They really did believe that he had come here by chance and didn't know that this was Blood Demon City. The goatee cultivator asked, "May I ask where Dao you came from and why you opened up a cave here? If you can explain it clearly, then there's no need to fight. If you can't explain it clearly and fight, then it won't be just the two of us dealing with you." Hearing this, Wang Daoyuan knew that his act of foolishness had worked. He said disdainfully, "I'm not afraid of your numbers. I'll kill all of you. I came from 10,000 Blades Mountain. Devil cultivators didn't have a good time there, so I came to Blood Demon Ridge. I saw that the spiritual energy here was dense, so I settled down here. What? This ownerless mountain doesn't allow me to open up a cave?" 10,000 Blades Mountain was at the edge of the southern wasteland, west of Mingsha. There was a third-grade metal attribute spirit vein there, and there were many different kinds of metal mines there. The 10,000 Blades Mountain was made up of many narrow mountain ranges that ran from north to south. Looking from above, it looked like countless blades were pointing towards the sky, hence the name 10,000 Blades Mountain. The two members of the Blood Demon Army naturally knew about the 1,000 Blades Mountain. This area was indeed the place with the densest spiritual energy in the entire Blood Demon Ridge. Without knowing the situation of Blood Demon City, there was nothing strange about opening up an immortal cave here. The two of them could tell that Wang Daoyuan's strength wasn't ordinary. With his cultivation at the middle stage of the Violet Palace realm, he was confident in facing two late-stage Violet Palace realm experts. His strength was definitely not bad, so he wanted to recruit him. The bearded cultivator smiled. This is the core territory of our Blood Demon lineage. Blood Demon City is also nearby, so it's not an ownerless mountain. We are members of the Blood Demon Army and are responsible for protecting the Blood Demon City. It was not impossible for Daoyu to live nearby. As long as one joined the Blood Demon Army, they would have a special cave residence and various resources. With Daoyu's strength, it wouldn't be impossible for him to become a commander in the future. Wang Daoyuan naturally wasn't willing. He replied, "I've heard of Blood Demon City, but I don't know where it is. I didn't expect to run into it here. However, I don't like restrictions and won't join any power. Since this place isn't ownerless, I'll look for another place. Daoyu, if you want to force me to stay, you can give it a try." The two believed that he was a new wandering cultivator, so there was no need for them to act. The bearded cultivator cupped his hands. "Since Daoyu isn't willing to join us, we won't force you. In the future, if you want to, you can come here at any time." Wang Daoyuan cupped his hands. "Since Daoyu is willing to let me go, I still have to find a suitable cave residence elsewhere. I won't stay here any longer. Farewell." After speaking, he rode his bone sword and headed north. The two of them even cupped their hands. "We'll meet again." After Wang Daoyuan left, the bearded cultivator said, "Let's go down and block the hole that Kid dug to prevent the spirit vein from being damaged." Seeing the two of them land, Wang Daoyuan knew that they were going to check the tunnel. A tunnel that was more than 500 kilometers long could not be hidden from the two of them. He immediately took out the wind-fire flying kite and drove it to head north. The two of them landed at the entrance of the cave and used their spiritual senses to probe inside, but they couldn't find the bottom. The bearded cultivator sensed carefully and asked, "Do you feel a baleful aura?" The bearded cultivator used his spiritual senses to probe and nodded. There is indeed a baleful aura. However, that kid is full of baleful aura himself. It's not strange for him to have a baleful aura here since he opened up a cave residence here, right? The bearded cultivator shook his head. "No, this baleful aura doesn't seem to be formed from killing too many people. It's more like the baleful aura of the earth vein. Furthermore, this tunnel is extremely deep and my spiritual senses can't reach the bottom. It's also very narrow. People would have to bend over to enter, so who would open up an immortal cave like that? There's baleful aura of the earth vein and an extremely deep hole, not good. This person escaped from a place with baleful aura. He might be an expert who escaped from the heavenly baleful gold mine. Most of the people locked up there have extraordinary statuses. Quickly send a message to the Grand Commander and report this matter. If my judgment is correct and this person escapes, it'll be a huge mess." The bearded cultivator nodded and took out a communication jade talisman to send a message to the Grand Commander. Wang Daoyuan had just flown a few hundred kilometers, and Blood Demon City was more than 6,000 kilometers away from the southern border of Mingsha Plain. Even if he drove the wind-fire flying kite at full speed, it would still take him 2 hours to reach there. In order to avoid being too conspicuous, he lowered his flying altitude and flew close to the mountain. After 5 minutes, 3 late-stage Sifu realm cultivators suddenly appeared in front of him to block his path. They seemed to be from the Blood Demon Army. The 3 of them were about to ask questions when Wang Daoyuan took out the white tiger blade and used the Sword Shadow Divine Light technique to condense 10 sword shadows. The 3 of them hurriedly took out their magic treasures to defend themselves. One of the elderly cultivators shouted, "Daoyu, don't be afraid. We just want to ask you some questions. We don't have any ill intentions." Wang Daoyuan couldn't be bothered to listen to his nonsense. "You don't have any ill intentions. Now that you know what I did, you have ill intentions." Riding the wind-fire flying kite, he nimbly dodged the attacks of the 3. The distance between him and the three of them was only 3 kilometers. To a Zifu disciple, this bit of distance was nothing more than an inch away. Since the Grand Commander had ordered them to block him, they didn't dare to be careless. They defended with all their might, preparing to receive Wang Daoyuan's attack head-on. However, Wang Daoyuan used the wind-fire flying kite to fly a kilometer to the side. Using the flying kite at high speed and forcefully changing direction caused great pressure on the body. Even with the strength of Wang Daoyuan's body, he felt his blood and qi churn. The three of them, who were planning to receive his attack head-on, almost broke their waists. Braving the magical attacks of the three, he charged forward. We were prepared to receive the attack head-on, but you turned tail and ran. They immediately retracted their defensive magical techniques and chased after Wang Daoyuan. They casually used some offensive magical techniques, but they were all blocked by the 10 sword shadows. During this delay, Wang Daoyuan had already fled more than 10 kilometers. The three of them chased after him on their flying swords, but unfortunately, they weren't able to keep up with the wind-fire flying kite. At this moment, Wang Daoyuan turned his head to look behind him. Hundreds of kilometers away in the air, an enormous flying warship was chasing after him. This flying warship was extremely fast, definitely much faster than the wind-fire flying kite. If this continued, he wouldn't be able to fly out of Blood Fiend Ridge and would be caught. Because they were too far away, Wang Daoyuan wasn't able to determine the grade of this flying warship. He hadn't revealed anything, and Blood Fiend City wouldn't send out a 4th-rank flying warship to deal with him. The Violet Lightning Demon Punishing Writ should be enough. After advancing for more than 300 kilometers, 2 late-stage Zifu realm cultivators blocked his path. Several Zifu realm cultivators appeared on either side of him as well. This really was an ambush from all sides. Once he was surrounded, he would truly be unable to escape. Chapter 470. Wang Daoyuan didn't panic. Although there seemed to be many opponents, there weren't many who could be of much use. When he escaped, the Blood Demon City's side wasn't on guard. The cultivators blocking the road in front and the 2 flanks were all temporarily deployed to make up the numbers. These people were probably carrying out some other mission nearby and were ordered by their superiors to intercept him. There wouldn't be too many people blocking the road, and there wouldn't be any precise coordination. The best way to deal with them was to break through as quickly as possible and leave them behind. There was no need to care about the 2 flanking cultivators. They relied on flying swords and couldn't keep up with the wind-fire flying kite speed. The biggest threat was still the flying warship behind him. The flying warship's speed was definitely more than 7,000 miles in 2 hours. It would be able to catch up to him in about an hour. In addition, there were cultivators blocking the road in front of him, delaying his time. The 2 cultivators blocking the road in front of him had to be dealt with as soon as possible. Otherwise, if he was entangled by them, the 2 flanking cultivators would surround him. Even if he used the Purple Lightning Evil Punishing Token, it would be difficult to escape. Injecting a large amount of spiritual power into the White Tiger Blade, he controlled the Windfire flying kite and charged towards the 2 people blocking the road. He was already wearing the Bloodfire Purple Gold armor. 2 late Zifu realm cultivators wouldn't be able to heavily injure him in one blow. He only attacked and didn't defend. Holding the White Tiger Blade in his hand, he charged towards the 2 late Zifu realm cultivators with 10 sword shadows. These 2 people seemed to know about his feint earlier and didn't defend with all their strength. They only took out their defensive magic tools and used their offensive spells at the same time. Soon, the distance between Wang Daoyuan and the 2 people was only a little more than a mile. The 2 people each shot out a fireball and a golden longsword. Wang Daoyuan controlled the Windfire flying kite and used the flying fire escape to dodge the 2 attacks and instantly appeared in front of them. One of them held a silver shield and the other a fiery red longsword. The silver shield was a defensive magic tool. It was extremely strong and not easy to break through. It would be very difficult to kill him instantly. On the other hand, the one with the fiery red longsword should be a fire attribute cultivator. Fire attribute cultivators were good at offense and not defense. There was still a high chance of killing him. However, he still had to divide them. Wang Daoyuan controlled the 10 sword shadows to attack the shield-wielding cultivator. The shield-wielding cultivator hurriedly infused his spirit energy into the shield and drove the flying sword under his feet to dodge backwards. The sword-wielding cultivator swung his sword towards Wang Daoyuan, sending out a sword light, before holding his sword in front of him to protect himself. Now that he was isolated and helpless, Wang Daoyuan controlled the 10 sword shadows to circle around him and attack him from behind. The white tiger blade in his hand wasn't idle either. He swung his sword and slashed at his head. After the shield-wielding cultivator realized that he had been fooled, he immediately brought out a silver meteor ball and threw it at Wang Daoyuan. Wang Daoyuan did not take the 2 attacks seriously at all. He was wearing the blood fire purple gold armor, so the 2 sudden attacks could only injure him slightly. Wang Daoyuan's white tiger blade slashed across his neck, and 10 sword shadows pierced through his back. The sword-wielding cultivator's head was separated from his body quickly falling down. The fiery red sword in his hand was also broken into 2. The sword light he released slashed at Wang Daoyuan's body, but it only cut through his Daoist robe. There wasn't even a mark left on the blood fire purple gold armor. On the other hand, the shield-wielding cultivator's meteor ball still had some power. The meteor ball smashed onto Wang Daoyuan's left shoulder. Wang Daoyuan's body was strong, and he was protected by the soft armor, so his defense wasn't broken. However, the impact of the meteor ball still made him feel his chi and blood surging. The shield-wielding cultivator didn't dare to continue forward and retreated towards the south. Wang Daoyuan didn't dare to stay either. He didn't even collect the corpse and continued to drive the wind-fire flying kite towards the north. This time, it only took a few breaths of time to deal with the cultivator blocking the way. Although he was slightly injured, it wasn't a big deal. After that, Wang Daoyuan didn't encounter any more cultivators blocking the way. Those demonic cultivators who were left behind by him all boarded the flying warship and continued to chase after him. After an hour, the flying warship was only 20 or so li away from Wang Daoyuan. The late-stage and peak-stage Zifu realm cultivators on the warship could already attack him with spells and magic tools. Naturally, the offensive magic tools on the flying warship could also hit him. Wang Daoyuan had no choice but to dodge in the air, and his speed was severely affected. If this continued, the flying warship would be able to block his path in just a few hundred breaths of time. At this time, he was still 3,000 li away from the border of Mingsha Plain. If this continued, he wouldn't be able to escape to Mingsha Plain. With no other choice, Wang Daoyuan could only lower his altitude and travel between the mountains. He put on the spirit-restricting silk cloak and used the mountains as cover to play hide and seek with the enemy. The flying warship was huge, and it wasn't easy to travel between the mountains. It definitely wouldn't dare to enter the mountains. The situation was as Wang Daoyuan expected. The flying warship continued to stay in the air and monitor the situation below. Under the command of the flying warship, the 10+ late-stage and peak-stage Zifu realm cultivators surrounded Wang Daoyuan. With the flying warship monitoring him, Wang Daoyuan found it very hard to hide. He was about to be surrounded by the 10+ Zifu realm demonic cultivators. At this time, a 3,000-meter-long greatsword appeared out of thin air and slashed down from the western sky. The demonic cultivators instantly trembled and hurriedly fled on their swords. Wang Daoyuan didn't feel anything. This greatsword wasn't aimed at him. However, he still controlled the firestorm kite and dodged to the north. This greatsword was aimed at the flying warship. At this time, the flying warship seemed to be fixed in place. Spiritual energy surged on the warship, as though it was using all its strength to dodge, but it couldn't move at all. The people on the warship wanted to flee, but they were powerless as well. The 3,000-meter-long greatsword slowly descended. As though it was cutting through tofu, it cut through the flying warship from the bow to the stern without any hindrance. The greatsword then disappeared, and the flying warship was neatly divided into 2 halves. Afterwards, the 2 halves of the warship didn't fall to the ground. Instead, they turned into fragments that filled the sky. The people on the warship still had expressions of terror on their faces as they turned into minced meat as well. The demonic cultivators who weren't on the warship were all trembling like sieves. Wang Daoyuan sucked in a breath of cold air. This flying warship was at least of the 3rd grade, and there were 5 or 6 late-stage and peak-stage Zifu realm cultivators on it, as well as 10 or 20 foundation establishment cultivators. Under this great sword, they were all turned into minced meat. It could be said that this sword was truly frightening. Compared to this, his heaven-cleaving sword was like the fluorescence of rotten grass, but compared to the bright moon in the sky. At this time, a cloud floated over from the west. A young man's voice rang out from within the cloud. "Junior apprentice brother Wang, I wonder if your myriad arts can break this sword of mine?" Hearing this, Wang Daoyuan was startled. This sentence had a hidden meaning. That year, at Wang Daoyin's Zifu Grand Ceremony, after defeating the Kuei sword, he had said, "Myriad arts can break this sword." This person's words seemed to be directed at what he had said that year. In that case, this person should be someone from the Tai sword sect. Wang Daoyuan cupped his hands. "I wonder which senior from the Tai sword sect came to my rescue?" Laughter rang out from within the cloud. "Junior apprentice brother Wang is indeed perceptive. No wonder my master, Daoist Black Thunder, praised you so many times. He said that Dao Yu was a natural sword cultivator seedling, but unfortunately, you came into contact with the Dao of sword cultivators too late. Zifu anomalies aren't swords. Walking the Dao of sword cultivators is always somewhat lacking." The cloud quickly floated over, and Wang Daoyuan saw clearly that there were 2 youths on the cloud. One of them was the familiar Kuei sword, while the other cultivator was a stranger. This person's appearance was ordinary, and he wore a plain white robe without any ornaments. His hair was tied up with a carefree cloth, and he didn't even wear the most common headdress for cultivators. There wasn't a trace of spiritual energy fluctuation on his body. He didn't look like a cultivator, but more like a scholar of the secular world. A demonic cultivator who had narrowly escaped death cupped his hands. "This Jindan Senior, why did you attack us? According to the agreement between my Blood Demon City, the Divine Weapon Pavilion, and the Tai Sword Sect, if a Jindan demonic cultivator doesn't appear, the Jindan cultivators of the 2 sects won't attack demonic cultivators. Senior, how do you explain your actions?" You're tuning in to the Wang Lin's Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.